Welcome to the zone, where time pauses and reality listens. This is not mindset coaching. This is not manifestation fluff. This is not another personal development theory rebranded in cosmic words. This is frequency, field, physics. This is your invitation to step into the calibration zone, an energetic corridor where your old patterns dissolve, your inner signal realigns, and your outer world begins to shape itself around your truest frequency. Everything you think is blocking your progress, emotional baggage, limiting beliefs, endless loops, isn't the problem. The problem is that you're trying to fix distortion from inside the distortion, trying to escape noise using more noise. You've likely tried to heal yourself through analysis, affirmations, or forced mindset shifts. You've tried visualizing harder, working longer, thinking positively. But if you're still stuck in the same vibrational orbit, here's why. You're not resetting from the 0 point. You're not calibrating. You're pushing. That ends now. Because today, you're going to discover something most never hear. True transformation doesn't start with intention. It starts in neutrality. It starts in a zone so still it feels empty. Yet it contains the code for every timeline you've ever longed for. We call this space the calibration zone. It's not a technique. It's not a feeling. It's a frequency you must learn to enter, live in, and eventually become. And once you're in, the rules of reality shift entirely. Over the next few hours, you're going to experience a quantum-level recalibration. You'll see how life doesn't change when you try harder. Reality doesn't bend to your will, it bends to your resonance. Manifestation isn't about effort. It's about removing interference. Your identity isn't fixed. It's encoded by frequencies you can resequence. You'll learn why neutrality, not positivity, is your portal to power. Why calibration, not effort, is the true force behind change. And how the 0 point field, a space of energetic stillness, is the ultimate gateway to manifesting your highest aligned timeline. This isn't theoretical. This is technical. And the calibration process is precise. We begin by identifying the subtle loops you're caught in. Then we strip away energetic debris that clutters your field. We teach your system to enter quantum stillness where reality bends. And from that stillness, we resequence your life from code, not willpower. In this journey, you'll hear terms like 0 point, resonance, field coherence, and quantum reset codes. These aren't metaphors. These are real energetic principles that determine what your life looks like right now and what it becomes after this experience. By the end of this video, you'll understand why true transformation isn't dramatic. It isn't loud. It's precise, surgical, and frequency-based. And once you calibrate to the right signal, reality has no choice but to reflect that back to you. Because your world is not reacting to your desire. It's responding to your field. And once your field is reset, your past cannot find you. Your old patterns cannot hold you. Your life cannot help but reorganize around your new resonance. Let's break that open. First, we're going to explore where you are right now. You think you're stuck because something's wrong with you. That's the illusion. What's actually happening is your energy field is clogged, chaotic, and running old code. You're trapped in a loop. You wake up inside familiar emotions. You react in predictable ways. You chase the same goals from the same place of lack. And even when something new shows up, it somehow still feels like more of the same. Why? Because you're not actually creating a new life. You're recycling the same timeline through a different disguise. The calibration zone interrupts that cycle. And the very first key to accessing it is understanding why you're looping in the first place. Let's break your timeline open. Your life is a loop, and here's how you're stuck in it. Everything you think is happening in real time is actually an echo. Your life today is not fresh. It's not immediate. It's the result of embedded patterns, energetic and neural, that have been running for years, even decades. These patterns live not just in your thoughts, but in your field. They generate a magnetic frequency around you, a signal the quantum field reads like code. This code tells reality what to deliver, not based on what you want, but based on what your field says is familiar. This is why change often fails. You want something new, but your signal is still broadcasting old data. Let's go deeper. You don't just think the same thoughts. You feel the same emotions. You respond to people the same way. You interpret situations through the same emotional filter. And unconsciously, you take actions that reconfirm your current identity. All of that is loop behavior. A reality loop isn't a mistake. It's a result of uncalibrated energy repeating itself. So how do we break it? First, you must see the pattern. And that means looking beyond thought. Thought is the symptom. The field is the cause. Your field carries imprints, trapped energy signatures that recreate your emotional experience day after day. Think of them like broadcast towers that pull in matching reality signals. Unless you power down the tower, you can't expect new channels to show up. That tower is what will start tuning now. But here's the catch. Loops aren't always obvious. You might not feel stuck. You might feel busy, even productive. But underneath the activity is sameness. Familiar friction. The subtle tension of trying to upgrade your life without actually shifting your energetic identity. And it's not your fault. We're taught to think our way to success, push our way through change, rewrite stories with willpower. But you can't outthink frequency. The only way out of the loop is to exit the signal entirely. And that means stepping into neutrality. Before we do that, though, you need to understand the noise. Next, we'll address something most people never see, because it's not emotional and it's not logical. It's energetic debris, invisible clutter clogging your field, interference that keeps your signal jammed. No matter how hard you try to recalibrate from the outside, you're going to learn how to detect it, because if you can't sense the distortion, you can't correct the signal. And if the signal isn't clean, the loop continues, no matter how strong your intention is. Next, we will expose the invisible static that's distorting your frequency and keeping your field magnetized to your past. It's time to identify the energetic debris that's been living in your system, unseen, but deeply felt. And once you do, you'll finally see the exact point where your power was leaking all along. Let's move forward. Every energetic field tells a story. And right now, yours is broadcasting a frequency written not just by your conscious choices, but by emotional leftovers you didn't even know were still active. We're talking about energetic debris, the invisible static distorting your life from the background. You won't hear it as noise. You won't see it as clutter, but you'll feel it as resistance, fog, overwhelm, or strange emotional dips that seem to come out of nowhere. It's not in your mind. It's in your field. And until you clear it, your calibration won't hold. Let's be clear, this debris isn't negative thinking. It's not trauma with a capital T. It's more subtle than that. It's the residue of unprocessed emotion, unfinished energetic interactions, identities you've outgrown but never closed, and timelines you're still tethered to without realizing it. Think of it like browser tabs. All those moments, fragments, and unresolved loops, they're still open, still running, still draining your battery in the background. You might not even remember them, but your field does. And because energy seeks resolution, those incomplete frequencies keep pulling reality toward you that matches their tone. Ever notice how certain patterns keep showing up in your life? Even when you've done the work? You've had the insight, you've had the therapy, you've journaled it out, and yet, here it is again. That's because the mental layer of clearing is only one surface. The real debris lives in the field, not the words, not the logic, but in the tone of your unspoken vibration. Until that tone is interrupted, until your signal stops broadcasting static, your outer world will continue reflecting the jammed pattern. So what exactly is energetic debris made of? It's the silent assumptions, the subtle tension in your body, the background stress you stopped noticing. It's unresolved emotional micro-events. Moments you thought were too small to matter, but left a vibrational fingerprint. It's energy you didn't express, pain you didn't digest, judgments you didn't clear, and narratives that lost relevance but never left your frequency. Most of the time, this debris doesn't announce itself. It hides behind roles you keep playing out of habit. You've likely mistaken these fragments for your personality, your truth, or just how life is. But they're not permanent. They're uncalibrated. And the only reason they're still here is because you haven't reset the signal from a clean field. This is why neutrality is so powerful. In that still space, the noise loses its anchor. But you can't get to neutrality while the debris is still active. This next part is technical, so listen carefully. When your field is cluttered, it disrupts coherence. Coherence is the synchronized harmony between your inner and outer frequencies. When you're in coherence, life feels smooth, opportunities align, intuition flows, emotions self-correct. But when debris is distorting your field, you become energetically dissonant. It's like trying to tune a radio to 101.5 while static from 94.3 keeps bleeding in. You don't know what to respond to. You feel off, unclear, and your reality reflects that. Here's what you need to start doing. Start tracking what feels heavier than it should. Start noticing what keeps repeating no matter how much work you do. Start tuning into where your field feels dragged, not directed. Because the only way to recalibrate your timeline is to cut the static from your field. This is why awareness isn't enough. This is why insight isn't enough. Until the signal is cleared, you're still translating distortion into action, choice, and manifestation. And that's why you stay stuck. So what clears debris? It's not fixing. It's not analyzing. It's interrupting the pattern at the energetic level and returning your field to 0 point. But before you can even reset, you need to identify the most dangerous debris of all. The fragments that feel like you, the beliefs you defend, the stories you're loyal to, the emotions you rehearse daily, not because they're true, but because they're familiar. This is what creates energetic congestion. Not external events, but internal repetition of old resonance. The signal isn't clean, and the field won't calibrate until it is. Next, we will explore why your present moment might not be real at all. Because once the debris is exposed, we have to understand what it's been doing to your perception of time, truth, and possibility. We're about to challenge one of the most deeply held assumptions you've been taught, that your current life is unfolding in the now. It's not. And once you see how your field keeps recycling the past into your so-called present, you'll finally stop reacting to a timeline that doesn't exist anymore. Let's reveal what's really happening. You think you're living in the present, but if you were to pause right now completely, what would you feel? Stillness? Clarity? Freedom? Or background tension? Familiar emotion? A strange anticipation of what's next? That feeling is the fingerprint of your field's memory. And if you track it carefully, you'll realize that what you're calling the now is actually the past playing itself out in real time. You're not in a new moment. You're inside an emotional replay disguised as presence. This is the myth of the moment. We've been taught that the present is fresh, that every second is a new opportunity. But for most people, that's not true. The present isn't clean. It's contaminated, infected by energetic impressions left behind by emotional residues and uncalibrated thought patterns. That means the now you're reacting to isn't real. It's your past in drag. And that's why your future can't find you. Let's go further. Every time you feel a surge of irritation, a drop in energy, a triggered thought, it doesn't come from the now. It comes from a neural and energetic sequence your system has memorized. And it's fast. So fast, you don't even realize you're in it. You feel the emotion, you interpret it through memory, you project it onto what's happening. And just like that, the past hijacks your perception of the present. So you don't actually see what is. You see what used to be. This is why reality seems stuck. Not because it is, but because your lens is fogged with echoes. To be fully present, you need more than awareness. You need to interrupt the emotional sequence that's pulling yesterday into today. And to do that, you have to understand something most people never consider. Time in the quantum field is not linear. It's layered, parallel, fluid. Which means when your field carries a resonance from 10 years ago, that version of reality still has magnetic pull. It still influences which timelines collapse into your experience now. So unless you dissolve that tether, your future will keep echoing your unprocessed past. Think about how many times you've had a new opportunity that ended the same way. A new relationship that triggered old wounds. A new business venture that triggered old fears. A new routine that collapsed under the weight of old self-doubt. That's not because you failed. It's because your field was still broadcasting a reality that had already expired. And the quantum field only matches your signal, not your goals, intentions, or desires. This is why calibration is so precise. You can't fake it. You can't override it. You either broadcast a clean now, or you echo a distorted then. So how do you break this cycle? You learn to detect repetition without labeling it as emotion. You track where your reactions are faster than your awareness. You look for the loop, not the logic. Because logic will say, this happened, so I feel this way. But calibration says, this vibration triggered a memory of the past, and I mistook it for the present. That's the shift. When you break the myth of the moment, you begin to see how little of your current life is truly fresh. And that's not depressing. That's power. Because if the now is just an echo, then all you need to do is mute the echo. And when you do, a blank timeline appears. A new field opens, and reality pauses, waiting for your next frequency. Next, we will confront the most insidious pattern of all, microtrauma loops. These are the nearly invisible energetic anchors that sabotage your calibration without you ever realizing it. They aren't loud, they aren't dramatic, but they're precise, and they've been steering your timeline more than any decision you've made. Once you recognize how small, repeated pain signals have shaped your energetic identity, you'll be able to remove them at the source. And from there, your frequency will begin to rise without resistance. Let's bring it to the surface. You've likely trained yourself to look for the big events, the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the crises. The heavy anchors in your timeline are obvious. They shout, they leave a mark, and they get all the attention. But what really controls your frequency is quieter, smaller, faster, slippery. It's not the massive wounds, it's the microtraumas, the subtle emotional events that pass too quickly to process, but deeply enough to fragment your field. These moments never got your full awareness, so they never received your release. And because of that, they formed microloops, repeating, recycling, reinforcing, again and again, without your consent. Microtrauma loops are so covert, they often hide inside your personality. A comment from a parent you brushed off. A rejection that seemed mild but shaped how you pursue opportunity. An awkward moment you laughed away, but internalized as proof of your unworthiness. These fragments don't dissolve. They become embedded signals, distorting your self-perception and altering your energetic set point. And because they're not dramatic enough to investigate, you live with them. You plan around them. You mistake them for your identity. But they're not you. They're distortions, running on autopilot. And every loop, no matter how small, affects how your field interacts with reality. Here's how you know a microloop is active. You react before you understand why. You shrink, defend, or overcompensate in subtle social settings. You feel unease around certain people or topics, even though nothing bad happened. You experience a persistent emotional pattern that never quite resolves, no matter what techniques you use. That's a loop, not based on belief, but frequency. And unless that frequency is brought into conscious calibration, it will quietly keep distorting your experience of now. Let's talk technical cause and effect. Every microtrauma loop leaves behind a frequency residue, a faint vibration in your energetic field that never fully returns to zero. It's not disruptive enough to trigger full system correction, so your field learns to compensate around it. It adjusts your behaviors. It avoids certain paths. It unconsciously reroutes you towards safe, but unaligned patterns. And over time, those micro-adjustments become a macro-identity. Not because you chose it, but because your energy adapted around distortion. Microloops are hard to detect until you look at your life not through your mind, but through your field. When you notice repetitive situations that don't match your desire, but somehow feel familiar, that's a signal. When you feel disproportionate emotion in a neutral situation, you're not overreacting. You're in a loop. When your logic says yes, but your body resists, that's the signal of energetic memory pulling rank over conscious choice. And these moments aren't minor. They're the foundational energy signatures of your current timeline. Most of these loops originate in childhood or early adulthood, but they stay because they were never metabolized by your field. That means your system still treats them as relevant. It still believes it needs to protect you from re-experiencing them, so it pulls you into preemptive avoidance. Or it locks you in patterns where you relive the same feeling, just in different packaging. Which is why you can feel like you're evolving mentally, but your life still reflects a past you thought you outgrew. Because those fragments never left. They just got buried under strategy, mindset, and spiritual bypass. Now here's where recalibration becomes non-negotiable. You can't think your way out of these loops. You can't logic your way around them. They're frequency encoded, which means they must be reset through energetic interruption, not narrative repetition. You'll learn how to do that soon. But first, we need to understand one more layer. What happens when your field becomes overloaded with too many open loops? It begins to lose structural coherence. You begin to experience energetic entropy. And when that happens, reality becomes chaotic, unstable, and incoherent. That's what we need to explore next. Because unless you know how to identify field entropy, you'll mistake chaos for growth and resistance for reality. It's not either. The signal decay. Let's go there. Your life isn't falling apart. It's losing structure. And structure doesn't break from force, it decays from field instability. When your energetic system has too many unresolved loops, outdated frequencies, and incompatible vibrations, it starts to deteriorate from within. The result is a condition called energetic entropy. Not emotional chaos, not psychological distress, but field-level disorder. And this is exactly what causes breakdowns in clarity, direction, consistency, and attraction. Entropy isn't life punishing you. It's the field breaking down from uncoordinated signals. Think of your energetic field as an architecture. Every coherent frequency strengthens its structure. Every unprocessed loop, every stuck pattern, every contradictory intention weakens it. Over time, the structure stops holding form. Your energy becomes foggy. Your intentions feel scattered. Synchronicities drop off. Alignment becomes rare. You feel tired not from exertion but from signal collapse. This is entropy, and it mimics burnout, depression, confusion, even spiritual apathy. But at its core, it's just the field becoming noisy and disorganized. And it's fixable, but only if you stop trying to fix it at the level of thought. Here's what entropy looks like in action. You try to manifest, but nothing stabilizes. You start a project, feel excitement, then drop it without explanation. You meet new people, have energetic spikes, then everything fizzles. You wake up motivated, then hit invisible resistance within hours. None of this is laziness. It's not fear of success. It's the result of an energetic field that's overloaded, imbalanced, and broadcasting mixed instructions to the quantum field. Entropy causes fragmentation, and fragmentation pulls you out of coherence. And without coherence, your field can't hold the signal of new timelines long enough for them to land. Energetic entropy is sneaky because it disguises itself as external failure. But every failure you think you're experiencing is just a feedback loop, your field reflecting its own instability back to you. And the longer you ignore the disorder, the more your system starts compensating. It overfunctions, underfunctions, collapses, it swings, and your nervous system starts adapting to that pattern, which means your biology starts reinforcing your entropy. And once your nervous system and field are locked in a shared pattern, your timeline becomes highly resistant to change until you recalibrate. Let's simplify this. Every day you are emitting thousands of microsignals. Thoughts, emotions, reactions, beliefs. Most contradict each other. You want freedom but fear abandonment. You want expansion but crave safety. You want truth but edit your voice to be accepted. These contradictions don't cancel each other out. They collide. And that collision creates instability in your field. That instability disrupts manifestation. It erodes clarity. It invites loops to re-enter. And it keeps your energetic baseline low, regardless of your potential. This is entropy, and it cannot be solved with positive thinking. It must be cleared through structured recalibration, which you'll learn soon. But first, you need to understand the cost of tolerating energetic entropy. Every day you normalize a chaotic field, you anchor disorganization as your vibrational default. And when disorganization becomes familiar, order feels unsafe. So even when the universe sends alignment your way, you reject it because it doesn't feel like home. Clearing entropy doesn't start with action. It starts with awareness of what you're broadcasting without realizing it. What frequencies are you living inside of that don't belong to you anymore? What contradictions are embedded into your emotional landscape? Where do your desires clash with your field's actual signal? That's where the reset begins. Next, we will prepare your field for a true reset. Now that you've recognized the debris, the loops, and the entropy, we're ready to step into cleansing. You'll begin the transition into a cleaner field, a quantum clean room, not by fixing, not by analyzing, but by neutralizing distortion so that true calibration can finally begin. Let's start clearing the table for your reality to be rewritten. Up until now, you've been identifying patterns, residues, and fragments that have been distorting your field. You've exposed the loops. You've tracked the echoes. You've felt the entropy. Now comes the shift. Before any real calibration can begin, your field must undergo a full energetic detox. Not emotional venting, not mental purging, but field-level cleansing, where the structure of your energetic body is cleared of static, soot, and leftover signals. This is the preparation phase. Think of it as cleaning the operating table before anything real can happen. Because if you try to calibrate a cluttered field, you simply overlay clarity on top of confusion. And that creates false alignment. We don't want that. We want a blank, coherent, still signal. A field clean enough to hold new timelines without collapse. So how do you begin this detox? You start by stopping the signal. Not all movement is progress. Not all thoughts need to be followed. Not all emotion requires processing. The detox starts when you stop reacting to distortion as if it's relevant. That doesn't mean bypassing your emotions. It means interrupting their loop long enough to reset your vibrational baseline. You're not here to interpret your feelings. You're here to clear the energy underneath them. Energetic detox begins with stillness. Not stillness as in doing nothing, but stillness as in non-interference. You must stop touching the distortion. Stop fixing. Stop narrating. Stop resisting. Because every time you mentally engage with an unaligned vibration, you feed it. And what you feed calibrates your field. Let that sink in. The clean room doesn't accept half-cleared fragments. It requires full field neutrality. This means no more emotional rehearsal. No more looping conversations in your head. No more justifying old identities or explaining old wounds. You're not here to build on top of the debris. You're here to clear it so completely, the structure beneath your life becomes invisible, clean, and responsive. Once that baseline is set, the field becomes programmable. But only if your energy is quiet enough to listen. So let's be exact. The detox begins with silence. Not external, but internal. You create space between stimulus and reaction. You practice non-response. And this isn't suppression, it's mastery. You'll begin to notice that most of your energetic output isn't authentic action. It's conditioned reaction. It's habitual defense, emotional rehearsal, energetic bracing, and the detox neutralizes it all. Here's what to do. Slow your field. This means slowing your pace of thought, attention, decision. Exit habitual reactions. If something triggers you, pause. Don't interpret. Let it float. Collapse your need to narrate. You don't need a story about what's happening. You need space for it to dissolve. Stop solving problems that don't exist yet. Preemptive anxiety keeps the noise alive. Silence it, and as your system drops into neutrality, something profound begins to emerge. A sense of inner quiet that isn't empty, but alive. That's the entry point to the quantum clean room. This is not a metaphor. The moment your field stops broadcasting contradictory instructions, it becomes electrically coherent. This opens access to inner alignment states you've never been able to hold for more than a few seconds. Your reality begins to pause, not because time slows, but because interference stops. You're not attracting chaos anymore. You're not reinforcing distortion. You're not fighting your past in the present. You're empty, and finally receptive. This emptiness is sacred, because within it new sequences can begin. But don't rush it. Sit in the stillness, because your system is relearning what it feels like to be unburdened. Not elated, not activated, just clean. And in that cleanliness, your next signal will be clear, strong, and aligned. But before we move into recalibration, there's one more layer to master. Silence isn't just a lack of sound. It's a presence, a resonance. And when you learn how to enter that quantum silence, your field begins to self-correct without any effort. That's where we go now. Next, we will step into the most overlooked state of true healing, the soundless space. It's not absence. It's presence without distortion. And when you learn to stay there, your entire life reorganizes around the stillness itself. Silence isn't the absence of noise. It's the presence of zero resistance. There is a place within you where the field goes completely quiet, where thought loses its charge, emotion loses its pull, and identity stops asserting itself. This is the soundless space. It is not nothingness. It is everything before anything takes form. And when you enter it, you're not escaping life, you're releasing distortion. You're stepping out of the broadcast and letting the signal reset from source. Let's be precise. Most people confuse silence with mental quiet. That's only one layer. True soundless space is a field state where your energetic broadcast ceases for long enough to allow full field restabilization. This isn't a feeling. It's a resonance, one that you can learn to enter and hold. And once you do, your reality begins to shift without your input, because you're no longer projecting distortion into the quantum field. You're holding 0-point stillness, and that stillness reorganizes reality around your non-interference. Why does this work? Because the quantum field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to your signal, and your clearest signal emerges only when all noise stops. That's why soundless space is the most powerful healing field you can enter. It doesn't fix. It doesn't adjust. It resets everything back to coherence, including your timeline. Let's be clear, this state is not relaxing. It's not passive. It's energetically surgical. In soundless space, the system recalibrates with extreme intelligence. Old sequences collapse. Unneeded emotional attachments dissolve. Your identity softens. And most importantly, your nervous system stops preparing for war. Your body stops expecting tension. And your field stops anticipating distortion. That is where true recalibration begins. How do you enter soundless space? It's not through thinking less. It's through non-reactive awareness. You become the space that doesn't respond. You let experience unfold without narrating it. You let emotion arise without attaching to it. You let thought pass without trying to redirect it. You become so still, the system forgets how to loop. And in that forgetting, everything heals. This is the 0-point window, the space where old timelines collapse and new ones wait for resonance. If you can hold it, even for a few minutes, your energetic baseline shifts. Your identity becomes less reactive. Your energy becomes more precise. And your presence becomes magnetic because you're no longer emitting distortion. You're holding clean, coherent, creative frequency. This is not a goal. It's a state. And the more you practice it, the more your outer world begins to reflect it. Opportunities feel cleaner. Relationships become easier. Time begins to feel more fluid. And your field becomes less porous, more sovereign. Because in the soundless space, there is nothing pulling you into contraction. Next, we will use this silence as a base. And from that still space, you'll now learn how to dismantle the energetic architecture of your old timeline. Not through effort, but through resonance interruption. We'll collapse outdated frequencies without reliving them. And by doing so, will make space for a completely new timeline to begin organizing itself around your current calibration. Let's begin the reset. You've reached the threshold where silence is no longer just refuge, it becomes technology. From within this quiet, a subtle but powerful opportunity appears. The ability to cancel out outdated frequencies without resistance or effort. This is known as phase cancellation, a natural quantum principle that allows energetic patterns to dissolve simply by meeting their inverse. And when applied to your timeline, it becomes a clean, sharp method for collapsing the very frequencies that have been repeating your reality. No trauma processing, no emotional rehashing, no fighting the past. You simply create a counterfrequency in your field, and the pattern erases itself. Let's be specific. Every recurring loop in your life exists because it has an energetic tone. That tone is embedded in your field. It broadcasts like a wave, and that wave keeps pulling in experiences that resonate with it. Now, imagine introducing a wave of the exact opposite frequency. When both frequencies meet, they cancel each other out, leaving silence. That silence is not emptiness. It is reset. That's phase cancellation. It is clean. It is fast. It is complete. And you don't need to analyze the pattern. You don't need to fix it. You don't even need to name it. You simply need to disrupt its frequency with an equal, coherent stillness that has no resonance with the loop. This is why the previous chapters prepared you for silence. Because only in a soundless state can your system hold a neutral enough frequency to cancel distortion without reacting to it. Your mind won't do this. Your willpower can't force it. Only the field can hold the inverse tone. And when it does, the loop ends, not through struggle but through energetic irrelevance. Let's translate this practically. When you notice a recurring emotional pattern, shame, anger, fear, your old approach might have been to feel it, interpret it, or release it, but that reinforces its relevance. Now, you're going to do something different. You enter complete neutrality. You become the space that neither welcomes nor resists. You allow the emotion to surface, but you offer it no charge. That zero response becomes the inverse tone, and as your field holds that stillness, the wave collapses. No story, no struggle, no survival mode integration, just cancellation. This is not bypassing. This is mastery, and the more you practice it, the more powerfully your system reorganizes. Because when the loop disappears, the scaffolding of your old reality begins to break apart. And in that collapse, your field reclaims the energy it was using to hold the pattern in place. You begin to feel lighter, not emotionally, but structurally. Your system no longer needs to defend the past. And that is when calibration begins to hold. Phase cancellation requires you to become the unmoving presence. Because any emotional reaction, positive or negative, feeds the pattern. But when you maintain stillness while the wave tries to activate, it loses power. This is what your field has been waiting for. Not for you to figure it out, but to become so stable that distortion can't find resonance with you anymore. You don't heal by force. You dissolve by frequency. And here's the result. When your system becomes coherent enough to cancel distortion, your timeline unhooks from the past. The resonance that was sustaining your current reality begins to dissolve. And as the old resonance fades, a vacuum forms, an open space in your field. This is where you'll now learn to remove residual emotions, energetically, not psychologically. Because after the wave collapses, the echo still lingers. The next step is learning to delete emotions from your field entirely, without engaging them. Let's go there. It's one thing to collapse a frequency. It's another to erase the energetic memory that emotion ever existed in your field. This is where we enter energetic deletion. This isn't suppression. It's not dissociation. It's not distraction. This is the clean extraction of non-relevant emotions from your energetic structure so thoroughly, they no longer influence your identity, your reaction, or your attraction point. And once they're gone, they cannot recalibrate your field again. This is not forgetting. It's neutralizing the emotion's anchor so that your system stops using energy to hold it. Let's make this clear. Every emotion that stays in your field does so because it has either unresolved charge or identity attachment. You don't just feel sadness. You feel like someone who has sadness. You don't just feel guilt. You begin to associate with being guilty. You don't just experience frustration. You become the person who deals with frustration. These are subtle bonds that keep emotions encoded in your energetic signature. Energetic deletion breaks those bonds. It doesn't make you forget. It makes the emotion irrelevant to your frequency. And when the frequency doesn't match, your field drops the file. Permanently. Here's how deletion works. You no longer try to transmute the emotion. You don't need to process it. Instead, you stop identifying with it entirely. That means no tracking, no interpreting, no attaching meaning, no viewing it as yours. When the emotion arises, you let it exist, but you hold the identity of someone who is no longer resonant with that vibration. You don't argue. You don't resist. You don't indulge. You simply hold a tone that is incompatible. And your system begins to deactivate the loop by starving it of identification. Let's say fear rises. You don't meet it with strength. That would still be a reaction. You don't meet it with analysis. That keeps it relevant. You meet it with non-belonging. Your field says, this doesn't live here anymore. And the frequency, finding no resonance, dissolves itself. This is energetic deletion. It's precise. It's clean. And it works when nothing else does. You'll know it's working when you recall old triggers, but they no longer register. You face situations that used to charge you, but you feel nothing. You search for meaning in an old emotion, but your field no longer responds. You speak about your past and feel no emotional echo. That is deletion, and it's not a mental detachment. It's a field-level upgrade that removes unnecessary weight from your signal. The beauty of deletion is that it's instant once you stop identifying. The only thing keeping old emotional signatures in place is your habit of labeling them as important. But when you stop reacting, retelling, reframing, when you simply stop broadcasting interest, the energy leaves. It cannot exist without your attention. This is why stillness was the preparation. Because from the quantum clean room, your system is no longer addicted to drama, healing, or processing loops. It's finally clean enough to delete without residue. And once your system is no longer carrying those emotional imprints, your field begins to expand. Your energetic surface area grows. And your sensitivity to truth-only frequency becomes extremely precise, which means your attraction point upgrades automatically. You don't just feel better. You start magnetizing reality that has no reference to the old you. Next, we will explore what happens after deletion. Because now that you've cleared distortion, neutralized reaction, and collapsed old frequencies, your system enters the void. Not a space of absence, but the true blank slate. This is the moment your identity begins to fade, and a new timeline waits for its resonance. But the void can be disorienting, unless you know how to live in it. Let's step in. When deletion completes, the field quiets. The loops stop. The signals go still. But something unexpected happens next. A strange sensation arises, emptiness. No triggers. No urgency. No identity markers to push against. Just space. This is the inner void. And it is not a problem. It is the final sign of successful collapse. The void isn't a gap. It's a pause in projection. Your field is no longer echoing the past. It hasn't yet structured a new timeline. And in between the two, there is silence. This is the blank slate. And most people panic here, because we are conditioned to fear stillness that doesn't offer instant clarity. We mistake it for being lost. But it is not confusion. It is the absence of interference. Here's what makes the void powerful and dangerous. It's neutral, which means it will receive whatever resonance you bring into it. If you bring anxiety, it will echo it. If you bring patience, it will mirror that too. If you try to control it, it will become distorted. But if you respect the stillness, it will become your canvas. This is why the void is sacred, because what you introduce here sets the tone for your next timeline, your next attraction point, your next field calibration. And your next identity. Let's be clear. Most people exit the void too early. They feel the emptiness and think something's wrong. So they reach for the familiar. They reactivate old patterns. They reinitiate old identities. They even reintroduce emotional chaos just to feel something. But that's not clarity. That's relapse. The void must be held long enough for your field to stabilize without the influence of previous resonance. And that means sitting with nothing, doing nothing, broadcasting nothing, only observing, letting your frequency settle into clean coherence. You'll know you're in the void when your thoughts slow, but don't stop. Your emotions are muted, but still present. Time feels irrelevant, and you no longer feel urgency to solve or fix anything. You are not floating. You are untethered. That's exactly where recalibration begins to take root. In this state, your system begins to ask different questions. Not what do I want, but what resonates now. Not who am I becoming, but what no longer fits. The void doesn't demand answers. It invites energetic realignment through silence. And in that silence, your nervous system unlearns defense. Your emotional body unlearns struggle. And your mind stops reinforcing who you used to be. This isn't the time to visualize. This isn't the moment for strategy. This is a stabilization window. Think of it like energetic surgery recovery. The healing happens not because of action, but because of stillness after deletion. Let the void hold you. Let the field do what it's designed to do. Recalibrate around clarity. If you try to jump ahead, you'll end up rebuilding with fragments. But if you honor the blank slate, something remarkable happens. A new inner structure begins to form, not based on emotion, not based on past, but on pure, clean frequency. This is where your signal becomes programmable. And that's when we begin the true calibration process. Next, we will begin phase 1 of the calibration protocol. Your system is clean, still, and ready. Now comes the structured process for resetting your energetic broadcast from the ground up. Let's begin with the most crucial step of all, energetic cleansing done correctly. This is where most people go wrong. They try to create a new life from within the same energetic architecture that built the old one. They chase timelines. They visualize goals. They rehearse affirmations. They write out plans. But if the signal hasn't changed, if the resonance hasn't upgraded, none of it will hold. Why? Because you're trying to create without calibrating. Creation that doesn't emerge from alignment is short-lived, unstable, and often misaligned at its core. It might feel exciting at first, but it lacks endurance, because it's fueled by will, not frequency. And in the quantum field, force is always weaker than resonance. This is where you flip the paradigm. You're not here to build a new timeline. You're here to become the frequency that naturally magnetizes it into your field. This means stepping away from effort-based thinking and stepping fully into field coherence. Your life doesn't shift because you work harder. It shifts because your field changes tone. That tone becomes your energetic signature, and the field reads that signature more accurately than anything you say, think, or plan. So what is calibration? It is the act of aligning your entire energetic system, emotional, mental, physical, and quantum, to a single clean frequency. And from that tone, the right relationships, events, decisions, opportunities, and timelines begin to orbit you naturally. You're no longer chasing the life you want. You're tuning into the version of you who is already living it. And that version becomes your field anchor. This is why hustle fails. Not because effort is bad, but because most effort comes from misalignment. It's a compensation tactic, a distraction, a bypass of the real work. And the real work is tuning your signal until it's so clear, so coherent, so consistent, that your outer reality cannot ignore it. The field doesn't reward good intentions. It responds to pure frequency. And when your tone becomes precise enough, creation becomes automatic. You're not thinking about what to manifest. You're broadcasting a truth so clean, reality begins to mirror it without negotiation. That's calibration. And it always comes before conscious creation. So how do you calibrate? You begin with stillness, but you don't stay there. You begin by exiting loops, but you don't stall. You move into a systematic alignment process that updates your baseline signal, reinforces your coherence, and prepares your field to hold higher timelines without collapse. That is the calibration protocol. It is not abstract. It is not spiritual fluff. It is a technical sequence your field will recognize immediately. And the very first step, now that you're ready, is energetic cleansing done correctly. Next, we will initiate the calibration protocol with step 1, energetic cleansing rituals. These are not surface-level routines. These are signal reset methods that scrub your field of residue and ready your system for anchoring true alignment. Let's begin your protocol. This is where the shift becomes tactile. Up until now, you've been resetting the internal environment. Now we begin programming the external signal. And we start with the most foundational act of all, energetic cleansing. Not for relaxation, not for good vibes, but for field precision. Because if your energetic field is cluttered with residue, calibration won't hold. Resonance will wobble, and your magnetic signal will be distorted at the broadcast point. This isn't just spiritual hygiene. This is frequency discipline. And it begins with learning how to purge all non-relevant energies from your system in a way that your field recognizes as a command, not a wish. Energetic cleansing is not about using sage or sound bowls. Those tools can assist, but they're only effective when your field is participating. Cleansing works when your body, breath, intention, and field are all aligned in a single unified tone that says, clear what does not belong. It's not just about what you do. It's how calibrated you are when you do it. Start with your breath. Breath is the field's conductor. When you hold intention through breath, you move energy, not symbolically but literally. Slow, coherent breathing signals your field to reset from the parasympathetic state. That shift alone weakens the resonance of unwanted frequencies. Now add intention, not words, tone. You must feel the difference between clearing as a task and clearing as command. Most people perform cleansing as a routine. That doesn't move energy. Real cleansing is done from a non-negotiable state of authority. You're not asking energy to leave. You're withdrawing permission for it to stay. Use this method. Begin with still breath. Let your system relax without control. Feel your own energetic perimeter. Don't visualize, sense. Locate where the field feels murky, heavy, or tight. Don't interpret, just detect. Inhale into those points without naming them. Just acknowledge. Exhale with a clear, internal tone of release, not desperation but clarity. Repeat until your perception shifts from something is stuck to I no longer detect this. Don't rush. You're not clearing symptoms. You're removing field-level residue that's been operating without your awareness. And your breath, paired with awareness, is your clearing instrument. You can augment this process with elements: water, smoke, movement, light. But remember, the tools are only as effective as your signal. If you use them from habit or spiritual theater, they're neutralized. If you use them from coherence, they become amplifiers. This is how you begin to program your space, your system, and your timeline for frequency-specific manifestation. But you must treat cleansing as a daily ritual of maintenance, not a reaction to emotional crisis. Because cleansing isn't about feeling better. It's about restoring resonant precision. That's the baseline your system needs before any timeline upgrade will stick. You'll know the field is clean when thoughts feel unpressured. Emotion has space but no urgency. Your body feels subtly lighter, not euphoric, but untethered. The external world no longer feels like it's pushing back. Once this baseline holds, your system is ready for field centering. Cleansing removes interference. Centering establishes anchor. Next, we will move into step 2 of the calibration protocol, the method for aligning your entire field into a stable, immovable axis that becomes the core of your magnetic power. Let's now enter the centering phase. Energetic cleansing creates the space. Now you must establish stability. This is where most calibration attempts fail. They stop at cleansing and forget that energy, once cleared, must be anchored into coherence, or the void fills back up with old noise. That's why cleansing alone isn't enough. It empties the room, but centering furnishes the field. It tells your system, this is the tone we hold now. This is the center we return to. This is the axis that stays still regardless of external noise. Field centering is not a concept. It's a literal energetic action that roots your frequency deep enough that your life begins to rotate around your alignment, not the other way around. Think of your energetic center as a vertical current running through your body, from the space above your head to below your feet. When this line is active, strong, and uninterrupted, your energy field stabilizes. You're no longer porous. You're no longer swayed by emotion, people, or unexpected data. You remain rooted in signal, and that signal begins to shape your external world through gravitational resonance. This is not metaphor. This is magnetic field behavior. A stable center creates an attractive force. To center your field, you must activate vertical alignment, feel your inner current from crown to root, hold stillness within movement, learn to maintain this vertical awareness while moving, speaking, and thinking. Anchor breath to presence. Let your breath move through your spine as if you're exhaling through the base of your body. Establish inner reference point. Let every thought, emotion, and experience be noticed from the axis, not from reaction. Centering isn't about perfection. It's about presence from the core. And once that center is active, your frequency becomes non-reactive and non-fragmented. You'll know you're centered when the field holds still during emotional activation. Time feels slower. Conversations lose charge. Decision-making becomes clean, not effortful. Physical space feels more responsive to your presence. From here, your nervous system begins to mirror your frequency rather than override it. That's the shift into sovereignty. You're no longer navigating the world from external signals. You're broadcasting from your axis, and that center becomes the most reliable tool in field recalibration. But even this is preparation, because once your field is cleared and centered, we reach the turning point. Activation. You've neutralized the old. You've stabilized the middle. Now we'll begin turning on dormant codes that have been asleep within your system, waiting for a stable enough signal to activate them. Next, we will move into step 3 of the calibration protocol, field reactivation and quantum pulse tuning. This is where your energy begins to broadcast the new tone. And from that tone, the timeline begins to shift. Let's initiate your activation. Now that your field is cleansed and centered, you're no longer spinning. You're still. You're steady. You're clear. But stability without activation is inert. Your signal may be clean, but unless it's broadcasting, the quantum field has nothing to respond to. This is where reactivation begins. And what we're activating isn't just new energy. It's the original code you were designed to operate from, before interference, before trauma, before identity adaptations. Reactivation is not amplification. It's precision tuning. It is the deliberate awakening of dormant resonance within your system, the part of you that's already aligned with higher timelines, but hasn't been transmitting due to previous distortions. Let's get technical. Your field operates like a living pulse. When it's misaligned, the pulse is erratic, incoherent, and fragmented. When it's centered and clean, that pulse becomes synchronized and tunable. Pulse tuning is the process of setting your frequency pattern to a specific bandwidth of reality. You're not attracting randomly. You're broadcasting a steady code that matches a specific version of life. And when you pulse consistently enough, the quantum field recognizes that code as stable reality and begins organizing around it. To initiate pulse tuning, begin here. Find your baseline tone. What does your field feel like now? Clean, grounded, but uncharged. Sense the default state. That's your 0 point. Begin micropulsing presence. Use breath, movement, or attention to generate tiny waves of resonance through your system. These are not thoughts, they're felt vibrations. Focus your attention on internal tone, not outer goals. You're not projecting a desire. You're holding a vibration that aligns with a version of you already living it. Sustain. This is where most calibration fails. The pulse must repeat. Not by force, but by relaxed, coherent persistence. Think steady rhythm, not urgency. Over time, the field locks onto this pulse as your new default signal. And that's when your outer life begins to shift. Not in a flash, but in structural reorganization. Let's clarify something vital. You are not manifesting in this state. You are pulsing identity into the field. And identity is what reality mirrors. Your system stops asking for things. It stops rehearsing lack. It stops reinforcing separation from what you desire. Because you're no longer seeking. You're transmitting as already being. That's the key distinction. And that's the true power of activation. Pulse tuning should feel electric and subtle at the same time, like a background frequency humming inside your body. Not loud, not dramatic, but unmistakably present. When that hum becomes continuous, you've entered energetic continuity. From here, you stop resetting every time something unexpected happens. You hold the tone, you hold the frequency, and your reality starts to reflect back coherence instead of chaos. You'll notice conversations shift tone. Timing feels smoother. People start reacting to your presence before you speak. Events begin to stack around your calibration, not your effort. You're no longer changing the world. You're tuning your presence to a level where the world responds. That's the final stage of the calibration protocol. And from here, something rare opens up. You now have the structural strength to live inside the zero-point field consistently. You're no longer just visiting neutrality. You are becoming the frequency of inner void itself, not as emptiness, but as the most fertile state in the quantum landscape. Next, we will enter the deeper integration of the blank slate. Let's now learn how to live in the inner void without panic, and allow it to construct your new timeline naturally. You've activated the pulse. You've stabilized the field. You're clean. You're coherent. You're present. And now, nothing seems to be happening. That's the void. But not the initial blankness from earlier. This is different. This is the integrated inner void. A silent, neutral field that's no longer resisting the past, no longer pulling from the future, and no longer vibrating from misalignment. It's not empty. It's non-dual. And living here is the beginning of timeline resequencing. Let's clear up the misconception. The void doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means nothing is interfering. This is the state where your reality begins to reorganize without push. And that's uncomfortable for anyone trained to force outcomes, track progress, or micromanage manifestation. In this state, there's no feedback, no emotional surge, no spiritual downloads, no signs or signals that reassure you something's shifting. There's just presence, stability, quiet. And that's the test. Can you live inside a field that no longer gives you stimulation, yet holds the exact resonance of the life you say you want? You see, most people seek transformation, but unconsciously crave emotional movement to feel like it's working. But movement often equals instability. The more calibrated your field becomes, the less dramatic your timeline shift will feel. Because it's not a high, it's a restructuring. And restructuring only holds when built on neutral ground. This is what you've reached. The inner void, fully stabilized. So how do you live here? Stop looking for validation from the field. That's old programming. Trust is now your resonance. Treat your baseline neutrality as success. No spikes, no slumps, just continuity. Let your next steps emerge, not be strategized. Intuition from this place is quiet, clean, and directive, not impulsive. Hold tone, not tension. You're not waiting. You're not between timelines. You're in pure broadcast mode. This is also where time softens. You'll begin to notice less interest in tracking the past, less anxiety about planning the future, a strange sense that everything is already underway, even without proof. That's not apathy. That's timeline resequencing. You are no longer pushing your life. You are allowing the field to reassemble your trajectory around your new tone. And because the tone is stable, the result will be too. So what's next? Once this state becomes your norm, not your practice, you're ready to interface with the neuroquantum layer. You'll learn how to tune the brain, not through thoughts, but through field-aligned signal correction. You've cleared the field. You've held the void. You've pulsed the tone. Now, it's time to align the neurological hardware to match the energetic software you've just upgraded. Next, we will enter the neuroquantum interface. Let's train the brain to respond to your new signal, not your old stories. You've reset your field. You've canceled the old frequencies. You've stabilized in neutrality. But something still feels like it's holding back. You've seen glimpses of change. You've felt inner stillness. But the outer world hasn't caught up fully. This is where we get precise. Because now the obstacle isn't energetic. It's neurological. Your brain is still wired to recognize your past self as reality. And that wiring, if not updated, will override your cleanest signal and pull you back into old timelines without a single conscious thought. This isn't sabotage. It's pattern recognition. And your brain is a master of it. Here's the issue. Your field can calibrate. But if your brain keeps interpreting that calibration through outdated filters, your nervous system will default to familiar behaviors. And when behavior stays familiar, timelines don't shift. Not because your energy isn't aligned, but because your neural pathways are still firing from an expired identity. This is why change feels so temporary. The brain resists quantum resequencing unless it's shown that the new frequency is safer and more relevant than the past. And until that happens, it will pull you back. Not to punish, but to protect. Let's simplify. Your brain is a prediction machine. Its job is to detect patterns, predict outcomes, and prepare responses that reduce uncertainty. Even if your current reality is chaotic, if the brain has survived it before, it will default to it. Because survival equals proof. And in the absence of calibration-based awareness, the brain says, let's keep doing what's already worked, even if it hurts. This is neurological drag. And until we correct the interface between your calibrated field and your brain's pattern engine, you'll feel a gap between your inner shift and outer expression. So how do you bypass this? You don't fight the brain. You confuse it with coherence. You expose it to data that doesn't match its past, but is stable, calm, and repeated often enough that it becomes the new baseline. The brain doesn't trust words. It trusts repetition. And it doesn't care about vision boards. It cares about signals. So we're going to speak to it in a language it understands. That means resetting 3 things. The stories it tells about who you are. The emotional states it prepares for without instruction. The pattern loops it runs by default, especially under stress. To begin, track your first thought of the day. Before movement. Before intention. Before affirmations. What's the mental tone? That tone sets the default narrative. And chances are it's recycled. The moment you recognize it, don't correct it with a new thought. Instead, do something different. Interrupt it without replacement. This tells the brain, this pattern is no longer running the show. And the interruption, done repeatedly, creates enough instability in the loop for the field to begin inserting new data. That's the bypass. You're not rewiring by brute force. You're introducing enough stillness for energetic intelligence to take over. This process will feel unfamiliar at first. You're used to thinking your way into new states, but now your field is leading and your brain must follow. Let it be confused. Let it pause. Let it sit in stillness without answers. Because in that space, your nervous system begins to trust new data not through logic, but through consistency. That's when the system stops bracing. And when it stops bracing, it opens. And when it opens, the timeline updates. Next, we will move into the practice of neural pruning. You'll learn how to disconnect brain pathways that are reinforcing your old vibrational loops without analysis, effort, or cognitive retraining. This is where field and mind finally begin working together. Let's begin cutting the cords from the inside out. Your brain doesn't want to change, but it will, because now it no longer has reinforcement from your energetic field. The old pathways are still present, but they're unsupported. They're like electrical wires running current with no battery behind them. All you need to do now is cut the connection, not forcefully, not analytically, but gently, consistently with a process known as neural pruning. Neural pruning is the systematic deactivation of unused, unreinforced brain patterns. It's your system's natural way of cleaning up outdated instructions. And it works best when you stop feeding the loops, even mentally. Here's the key. You don't rewire by building new habits. You rewire by withdrawing energy from the old ones and allowing them to fade from disuse. That's pruning, the subtraction, not addition. And the more your system stabilizes in zero-point stillness, the faster pruning accelerates. Because the brain starts to recognize there's no longer a need for this thought, this behavior, this reaction. And it removes the code. Let's create a real-world shift. Track any recurring thought you experience that carries emotional charge. Not the thought itself, but the trigger behind it. When it arises, do not engage. Do not argue. Do not redirect. Do not replace it with a better thought. Instead, hold awareness. Breathe once, deep and slow. Stay completely still. Let the thought pulse. Then watch it fade. You don't control it. You let it collapse without reward. Every time you do this, the brain learns that the old circuit isn't valuable anymore. And the field, already upgraded, confirms that signal is no longer relevant. This is not mental discipline. It's frequency-led pruning. And it works better than affirmations because it respects how your system naturally updates. No signal equals no relevance. No relevance equals no reinforcement. No reinforcement equals deletion. That's how thought patterns unhook from identity. And when identity begins to loosen, behavior shifts automatically. You don't need to control your habits. You need to interrupt the field-brain feedback loop that was telling your system who to be. That loop was artificial. It was based on survival programming. And now, in the void of that pattern, you are free to hold a new neural tone. But the tone must match your field. So you don't invent new beliefs. You let new signals emerge naturally from your calibration. This is where thoughts become intuitive, not forced. This is where actions feel inevitable, not manufactured. This is where reality becomes synchronized, not pursued. You'll know pruning is working when your old thoughts feel faint even when they arise. Your reactive patterns show up but no longer pull you. The timeline feels fresh, not because it changed, but because your lens no longer distorts it. This is the neurological collapse of your past identity. And it happens not through strategy, but through still, sustained coherence. Next, we will speak directly to the brain, not with affirmations, but with frequency-encoded commands your nervous system actually listens to. This is where you begin speaking the language of your field with your mind, cleanly, precisely, and with full calibration. Let's now begin building your personal quantum command system. Now that the pruning has begun, now that the noise has thinned out, you're finally in position to speak to your brain in the language of resonance. Not thought, not positive affirmations, but frequency-encoded instruction. This is the real upgrade, neuroplastic quantum commands. This isn't mental repetition. It's not wishful thinking. It's a direct interface between your calibrated energetic field and your brain's receptive architecture. And when done correctly, these commands rewrite perception, emotion, and response without argument, without pushback. The brain doesn't need to be convinced. It needs to be entrained. Let's be precise. The brain follows frequency more than language. So if your inner dialogue is emotionally charged, even when it's positive, it still activates survival programming. But when the tone of your inner instruction is still, steady, and non-reactive, the brain registers it as truth. That's how real reprogramming works. And that's why most mindset work fails. It's built on emotional urgency. Quantum commands operate from energetic coherence, not motivational tone. You're not affirming, you're instructing. And your instruction becomes law when your field matches your words. Here's the formula. 1. Choose a command that reflects identity, not outcome. Example, not I will succeed, but I stabilize in power. Not I am worthy, but I broadcast sovereign value. 2. Strip all emotional charge. Say the command internally from a still, neutral space. Not with effort, not with emotion, just tone. 3. Repeat with rhythm, not urgency. Use a breath cadence. Align your heartbeat. Keep the frequency steady. Let the command anchor. 4. Use it only when neutral. Never command from panic. Wait until the field is still. Then speak. Then seal. Your command must feel like a current, not a concept. It should hum under your thoughts, unchallenged. And over time, it becomes the new orientation point for your nervous system. Not because you said it 1,000 times, but because you said it from field dominance and the brain followed. This is how identity becomes instruction-based, not memory-based. Let's go deeper. The most effective commands are not designed to get you something. They're designed to turn off what no longer belongs. So instead of saying, "I am confident," say, "I stop seeking reinforcement." Instead of, "I am safe," say, "I stop preparing for threat." These are not hopes. They're permissions withdrawn. And your brain, once repeated with precision, will begin shutting off those neural loops because it trusts the tone behind the instruction. You are not reprogramming your brain by force. You are updating your system through vibrational alignment. And the moment you stop using emotional leverage, the resistance collapses. You don't need to feel powerful when you command. You need to be unavailable for distortion. The tone does the work. The tone becomes your signal. The signal shapes your reality. Now that your system can accept direct instruction, you're ready to formalize this process with a tool that builds momentum over time. Your personal calibration mantras. Not affirmations, not scripts, but code phrases that train your frequency to generate itself without your effort. Next, we will create your self-generating energetic command language, one that replaces mental loops with stable, field-rooted identity pulses. Let's start building your calibration language now. Words can disrupt your field, but words can also stabilize your signal if they're constructed the right way. The difference is in the origin. Most people use words to compensate for what they don't believe. You're about to use words to amplify what your field already holds. This is the foundation of calibration mantras, code phrases that not only instruct your brain, but also reinforce your field's tone through repetition that feels effortless. Not because you're trying, but because the phrase resonates so purely, it echoes in your system without resistance. You're not just repeating words. You're generating a living frequency. A true calibration mantra does 3 things. It reflects a state, not a story. It requires no emotional proof to be effective. It becomes self-sustaining through inner repetition that feels inevitable, not forced. The formula is simple, but the construction must be precise. You're going to build phrases that carry neutral, directive power and avoid all filler, hype, and emotional leakage. This is coding, not cheerleading. Start with this process. 1. Choose a signal word, one that resonates with the tone you want to embody, not what you hope to achieve. Examples: still, clean, ready, clear, center, untouchable, exact. 2. Build around a command state. Structure the mantra in a short pulse. 3 to 6 words. No more. Example: I stabilize in clarity. Example: clean tone, calm signal. Example: stillness holds my field. 3. Test the phrase in your body. Speak it mentally. Don't try to feel anything. Just listen. Does your field reject it, strain to accept it, or relax immediately? Keep only the ones that induce immediate neutrality. That's your signal. It belongs. Your mantra isn't meant to hype you up. It's meant to replace the default noise with a clean pulse. When your system feels uncertain, the mantra becomes your fallback tone. Not because it fixes anything, but because it reminds your field what it already knows. And that's the real work. You're not injecting truth. You're reinforcing what distortion once covered. Here are examples of calibration mantras that function as energetic code. Stabilize the axis. No pull, no push. I hold a still tone. This field belongs to calm. Silence is my signal. Each one is short, frictionless, and emotionally neutral. And that neutrality is what keeps them active, long after you stop repeating them. They become tone anchors, and those anchors stabilize identity. You'll know your mantra is correct when you don't need to believe it, you just accept it. It doesn't conflict with any part of your current reality. It creates a subtle hum of coherence, not excitement. It feels inevitable, not aspirational. These mantras are not affirmations. They're energetic GPS signals. And when you use them consistently, your system begins to shift direction without any visible effort. This is the end of confusion and the beginning of field-directed language. Next, we will begin writing the blueprint of your future by encoding memory into the timeline ahead. You'll learn to speak into your own quantum future, not through goals, but through vibrational memory deposits. Let's begin quantum scripting. At this stage, your field is no longer reactive. Your signal is consistent. Your brain is listening, and your inner tone is no longer shaped by habit, but by intelligent frequency command. Now, we begin to construct from that state, not by projecting desire, but by imprinting resonant memory onto timelines that haven't yet arrived. This is quantum scripting, not journaling, not dreaming, but encoding future moments into your energetic field as if they have already occurred, so clearly, so neutrally, that your system accepts them as current reference points. From there, the quantum field reorganizes to match the tone of your already activated memory. Let's clarify something. Quantum scripting isn't visualization. It's not emotional rehearsal. It's not tricking your brain. It's not pretending. It's the conscious act of embedding felt future data into your current energetic broadcast, so the field collapses matching probability structures around that tone. In simpler terms, you imprint your field with a vibration of experienced certainty, and reality aligns to reflect it. Not because it's written, but because it's calibrated. Here's how to begin. 1. Choose one future moment, not a goal, but an experience. Not, I want a business, but I remember the ease of speaking to aligned clients every day. Not, I want a partner, but I remember the mornings filled with shared stillness. 2. Write in past or present tense memory. Use phrasing like, I remember how natural it felt. I always knew this version of life would feel like. I return to the memory of. This removes desire and replaces it with timeline anchoring. 3. Remove emotion-heavy words. Emotion adds charge. You want tone. Use frequency-neutral phrases like steady, simple, coherent, precise. 4. Write for no more than 60 to 90 seconds. You are not scripting a story. You are inserting a moment of energetic instruction. That's all your field needs. The goal is not to create a vision. The goal is to establish memory reference anchors that your nervous system and field can calibrate to as if they've already occurred. This triggers what's known as retrospective resonance. Your system begins to align present choices, behaviors, and micro-decisions as if they are echoing back from an already completed experience. This removes friction. It removes confusion. It ends procrastination. And it opens your field to receive instructions from the future version of you without resistance. When done consistently, quantum scripting shortens the time gap between alignment and manifestation, removes emotional volatility from your creation process, increases the magnetic pull of outcomes that match your future memory, reorganizes your identity around stability instead of striving. This isn't fantasy work. It's timeline programming. And once you script from memory long enough, the future stops feeling like a question. It becomes an echo, already real, already encoded, already present in your field. Now that your energetic memory system is writing the future, your calibration no longer fluctuates based on what's visible. But to hold that stability, we now move into timeline physics, where you'll learn to shift tracks without disrupting your inner field. Next, we will look at how reality reorganizes itself when you change tracks entirely, not by fixing what's broken, but by jumping to an already aligned path. Let's explore timeline switching. You've done the deep clearing. You've anchored the tone. You've begun embedding new reality into your field memory. But now comes the temptation to go back, to revisit the why of your old story, to fix what was broken before you calibrated. This is where most get stuck, because they try to repair a train running on the wrong track instead of realizing they can just switch tracks entirely. Timelines aren't roads you travel. They're frequencies you match. And the version of reality you live in is determined not by how hard you work on the current one, but by how fully your system shifts to a new one. Let's be exact. Every timeline has its own physics, its own logic, its own people, events, synchronicities, and emotional defaults. And the only thing keeping you on a particular track is the stability of your emotional and energetic broadcast. Once that changes, you shift tracks. You don't drag your past with you. You exit the entire grid. This is why it's useless to try fixing your old life from within the same field that created it. The more you tinker with it, the deeper you anchor yourself in its structure. The moment you stop needing it to make sense. The moment you stop trying to heal the experience. The moment you stop defining your present by what preceded it. You exit the track. So how do you switch? It's not mental. It's field movement. Fast, subtle, decisive. Here's the framework. 1. Detect repetition. Where does your life feel familiar, even when the details are new? 2. Pause all response. Don't react. Don't fix. Don't analyze. Just interrupt. 3. Stabilize your current signal. Hold your new calibration mantra or energetic command with complete neutrality. 4. Stop assigning meaning to what you see. The moment you make the old timeline about you, you re-anchor. 5. Redirect your focus to the track that already matches your current tone. This is where your quantum-scripted memory becomes your default frame of reference. You don't jump timelines by force. You switch tracks by holding the new tone longer than the old one tries to return. This is not emotional bypass. You're not denying anything. You're just refusing to rehearse distortion. Because that's all your current timeline is. A structure built from repeated emotional tone. Change the tone, change the track. And when the track changes, everything recalibrates. Conversations shift. Opportunities reroute. Resistance fades. New behavior emerges without planning. Not because you tried harder, but because you stopped trying at all and began transmitting a tone that made the old structure incompatible. Here's the paradox. The more you chase evidence that the track has changed, the more you reinforce the old one. Instead, let your calibration be enough. And when you're ready, you'll feel the switch. It won't be dramatic. It will feel like everything that used to be urgent just became irrelevant. That's the moment the rail switches beneath you, and the train just keeps moving. On a different track toward a different timeline, built for the version of you you've finally become. Next, we will focus on how to jump to new timelines gently, without emotional or nervous system trauma. Let's stabilize the leap. You've made the switch. The field is calibrated. Your tone has shifted. Your identity no longer belongs to your old storyline. But now comes the body's response. Because even when the energy is aligned, your nervous system might still believe change is dangerous. This is why most timeline shifts collapse. Not because the signal isn't strong enough, but because the system hasn't learned how to leap without bracing. You've upgraded your field. Now we teach your biology how to move without shock. This is the secret to soft leaping, the ability to transition between timelines with zero nervous system trauma. Let's clarify what causes trauma in change. It's not the new timeline. It's the sudden contrast between who you were and what you're now receiving. It's the emotional dissonance. It's the lack of inner familiarity. It's the brain's response to new input that doesn't match the body's historical memory. So even when the leap is aligned, your system might interpret it as a threat to identity. And in response, it pulls you back, not into danger, but into the comfort of the known. This is why quantum leaps often feel like temporary highs followed by rapid contraction. Your system isn't rejecting success. It's trying to protect your nervous system from the unknown. Here's how we fix that. You must train your body to expect success, to normalize alignment, to breathe through rapid upgrade. This means doing one simple but radical thing. Slow down your integration. Not your manifestation, your response to it. Because even when life speeds up, your center must stay still. The field moves fast. The nervous system moves slower. You don't slow down the leap. You stretch your nervous system's capacity to hold new identity without collapse. Try this the moment you feel resistance mid-shift. Pause all action. Do not respond to the old story trying to resurface. Wait, breathe as if nothing changed. Train your body to experience change without triggering urgency. Anchor your calibration mantra. Repeat it silently, rhythmically. Let your body feel its rhythm, not its meaning. Refuse emotional narrative. Feel what's there, but don't assign it a cause. Let emotion move without form. Visualize your current field as the baseline, not the exception. Instruct your body. This is now normal. Repeat. This teaches your system that upgrades are safe. That reality shifts don't require defense. That resonance can expand without contraction. Most people don't leap too far. They just leap too fast without giving their inner system time to catch up. You're not here to explode into a new life. You're here to arrive gently and let it build naturally around your tone. That's sustainable shifting. And when your field and nervous system move together, your timeline doesn't spike. It stabilizes. You'll notice the change when joy feels familiar. Silence doesn't feel suspicious. Calm becomes your new on. And you stop performing progress and start embodying it. That's when your leap becomes permanent. Now that you've softened the shift, the field is fully open. And from here, your power to collapse possibilities into form becomes available. Next, we will activate your ability to turn potential into present moment reality through observation that stabilizes probability. Let's begin the observer collapse technique. There's a moment in the quantum field when potential becomes form, when timeline options become a single lived experience. And that moment is determined not by desire, not by time, but by observation. This is the observer collapse, the moment when a wave becomes a particle, not because it was ready, but because you focused with neutrality, presence, and calibration. This isn't spiritual metaphor. This is quantum architecture. And once mastered, it gives you the ability to collapse timelines into reality without hustle, force, or performance. Let's get clear. You live inside a field of infinite potential, but only one version of that field is being reflected to you right now. Not because it's more real, but because it's the one you're observing consistently. That means every thought, every feeling, every emotional default becomes a lens. And the longer you observe one version of reality, the more likely it becomes your default timeline. So if you want to shift your reality, you don't fight the current one. You change the version of life you observe with neutrality and steadiness. Here's how the collapse works. Select the timeline you want to collapse. Use your quantum script or calibration mantra to reference it clearly. Hold awareness on it, not to change it, but to stabilize its presence in your field. This means no urgency, no hoping, no effort to speed it up. Ignore contradictory external evidence. Do not test your calibration. Do not seek proof. Just observe as if it's already real. Reinforce this by refusing to emotionally rehearse the old timeline. It might show up. You let it pass. It does not belong to your gaze. Let the field collapse it into form without your help. You are not building anything. You are choosing which version of reality receives your attention. Your focus is the frequency, and your consistency is the command. The moment you stop wobbling between belief and doubt, between presence and performance, between neutrality and emotional push, the field responds, and it responds fast, because energy is always looking for coherence. And your calibrated observation becomes the exact attractor for that version of life to stabilize and materialize. This is not mental repetition. This is identity-level anchoring. You'll know the collapse has occurred when you stop wanting the outcome. You feel no urgency around its timeline. You behave as if it's irrelevant whether it happens, because it's already installed. And reality starts reflecting it without announcement. This is quantum maturity. It's not flashy. It's not euphoric. It's stable. And it builds reality with no residue of distortion. Next, we will finalize the shift by cutting off remaining echoes from your past reality. Those invisible threads still trying to pull you back into expired identity. It's time for echo elimination. The shift has occurred. Your tone is stable. The timeline is forming. But something lingers. A subtle pull. A background whisper. A flicker of old thought, old emotion, old pattern. These are not signs you're regressing. They're residual echoes, reflexive responses from a reality that no longer exists. Your field no longer matches them, but your system remembers them. And unless eliminated, they act as feedback loops, constantly testing your calibration for weakness, constantly pulling at your stillness. This is echo elimination, the art of severing connection to expired frequencies that no longer serve your timeline. Not because they're bad, because they're irrelevant. And relevance is everything. Let's define what an echo is. It's not a memory. It's not a trigger. It's not trauma. It's a subtle energetic ping from the field, trying to confirm. Are we still aligned with the old identity? When you respond, even with just awareness, you reactivate the channel. And the echo turns back into a loop. This is why old patterns sometimes sneak back, even after massive calibration. You didn't collapse your timeline. You just responded to something that no longer belonged. Echoes often appear as random emotions with no clear cause, unexpected thoughts tied to past decisions, familiar conversations that drain your energy, repeating choices that seem to slip in, dreams or mental imagery from old chapters. These are not tests. They're pings for confirmation, and your job is not to answer. Your job is to eliminate the signal. To eliminate an echo. 1. Notice the feeling. Do not label it. Do not narrate. Just identify the presence of old tone. 2. Pause before reaction. The moment you feel even the smallest urge to fix or interpret, stop. 3. Speak your current calibration internally. Use your mantra or code phrase like a firewall. This signal is no longer valid. Still tone holds. No return frequency authorized. 4. Return immediately to neutral observation. Let the echo pass like a radio signal fading out. Do not attach. Do not replace. Just watch it expire. 5. Breathe once, slow and full. Then act only from center. Your response seals the field. This is not resistance. It's closure. Each time you eliminate an echo without drama, your new identity becomes more permanent. Because the echo is a loyalty test, not to your past, but to your tone. And when you pass, you sever ties to timelines that no longer exist, not by rejection but by non-response. They dissolve from irrelevance. This is energetic hygiene at the mastery level. You're not defending your new life. You're refusing to relive what no longer belongs to your field. And that refusal doesn't require effort. It requires neutral strength, the kind of clarity that doesn't need to prove anything. That's the frequency where echoes can't land. And once they can't land, the field forgets them. Forever. You'll know the echoes are gone when familiar emotional cycles simply stop returning. People, events, or memories from your past stop finding you. You no longer have the urge to explain your transformation. You wake up and realize you haven't thought about that thing in days, weeks, at all. That's full detachment. Not emotionally, energetically. And now that the past has no more doorways, we close the loop with something sacred. The sequencing ritual. You're not just aligned. You're now going to lock in this frequency and declare it your new base reality. Let's do it with precision. You've cleared. You've recentered. You've pulsed your field into new frequency. You've collapsed the timeline and silenced the past. This isn't just a new chapter. It's a new sequence. But energy doesn't just change because it's aligned. It stabilizes when it's anchored through ritual. Ritual isn't symbolism. It's field confirmation. It's a coherent act that tells your system, this is the frequency we hold now. This is the timeline we live from. This is the identity we don't negotiate with. This is the sequencing ritual, the final step that transforms your inner recalibration into a permanent energetic broadcast. It doesn't require candles. It doesn't require moon cycles. It requires precision. And it's simpler than you think. Sequencing equals energetic authority. It's the difference between wanting something and claiming it with tone. And once claimed, your field stops waiting for permission to live that life. You're no longer aligned with it. You are it. That shift is permanent when confirmed through action. Let's walk it through. Step 1. Speak your tone. Out loud. Once. Not a goal. Not an affirmation. A code. Something like, "This is the timeline I hold. My axis is fixed. No return sequence remains." Choose words that feel exact, not emotional. Step 2. Move your body deliberately. Stand. Stretch. Walk. Make one intentional motion that your system links to embodiment. Not gesture. Not performance. But choice through form. Step 3. Do one physical task in your world that reflects the new tone. Could be as small as cleaning a drawer, deleting an old file, changing a contact name, rearranging your desk. But the field sees it as, I act from my new signal. Step 4. Silence. 90 seconds minimum. Hold complete stillness. Let the calibration settle. This is the moment the tone moves deeper into your system than thought ever could. Step 5. Resume life as usual. No announcement. No big changes. No sharing. Just presence. Because your life has already changed. The sequencing ritual doesn't make the new timeline happen. Tells the field, there's nothing more to wait for. That certainty becomes final resonance. And once resonance locks, your new timeline becomes the only one your system responds to. It's not theoretical. It's not potential. It's real. Anchored. Ongoing. This is the close of your inner recalibration cycle. From here, it's not about reaching or striving. It's about living from the frequency you've sequenced. No more collapse. No more wobble. No more memory of distortion. Just tone. Just clarity. Just quiet, consistent alignment. Next, we move into the art of staying calibrated. How to live from this frequency when life moves fast, people shift, and the world tests your steadiness. Let's begin learning the daily reset practices that keep your field sovereign. You've made the shift. You've sealed it. Your new identity isn't a concept. It's an active signal. But now comes the real mastery, staying there. Because even the most precise calibration can drift if left unmaintained. Your field doesn't degrade from dramatic events. It softens through small, unconscious micro-responses to life. An offhand comment. A glitch in your routine. A moment of self-doubt you didn't notice until it grew. This is where microcalibration becomes essential. Not as a ritual, but as a daily precision habit. Think of your energetic field like a tuning fork. You don't need to recreate your tone daily. You just need to keep it from drifting. And drift happens when attention slips from signal to reaction, when you start responding to the outer world instead of transmitting from your center. Microcalibration keeps the field tight, clear, and centered. In minutes, not hours. It's not a reset. It's a frequency refresh. And when done properly, it becomes the invisible habit that holds your entire timeline in alignment. Here's how to build your daily reset protocol. 1. Schedule a tone check-in 3x/day. Not journaling. Not meditating. Just pause for 20 seconds and ask, what tone am I in right now? Am I broadcasting or reacting? Adjust by returning to your mantra or anchor phrase silently. 2. Touch your axis physically. Place your hand lightly on your chest, stomach, or solar plexus. Anchor sensation to signal. Let your body remember. This is my center. This reactivates alignment instantly, even mid-chaos. 3. One breath, one phrase, one shift. Anytime you feel friction, pause. Exhale slowly. Whisper your code. Then move forward without explanation. This trains your nervous system to default to tone. Not panic. 4. End the day by zeroing the field. Before sleep, return to complete neutrality. No reflection. No review, no story, just silence, stillness, and a single phrase. Nothing remains but tone. Then sleep. These micro-movements are not self-care. They're not emotional regulation. They're field stabilization. And they work not because they change your life, but because they prevent it from reverting. Because staying calibrated means staying unavailable for distortion, no matter how subtle. You'll notice, resistance fades faster. Old habits don't trigger you. People start responding to your stillness without understanding why. Life begins to organize itself around your tone, not your tasks. This is field intelligence on autopilot. But it only holds if you keep your signal clean. Not by force, by refinement. Next, we will address how to prevent something most overlook: energetic decay. Because even coherence degrades over time unless you actively reverse entropy. Let's now explore how to keep your field fresh and structurally alive. Everything in the quantum field is subject to entropy, a natural loss of order over time. Not because of trauma, not because of negativity, but simply because energy decays without direction. Even the most coherent field, if not refreshed, will begin to weaken. Tone gets dull. Clarity gets heavy. Presence begins to feel like discipline instead of natural flow. And if left unattended, your signal becomes slightly misaligned, then fragmented, then reactive. This is energetic entropy. And this is how people lose alignment after even the most powerful shifts. Not through failure, through neglect. The antidote? Deliberate input. Entropy is not a punishment. It's a system check. Are you actively nourishing your signal, or passively hoping it holds? If you want your calibrated identity to sustain, you must feed it. Not through hustle, but through structured energetic clarity. Here's how. 1. Replace passive input with field coherent signals. That means limit exposure to people, content, and conversations that dull your tone. Curate everything that enters your awareness. Ask, does this reinforce my current calibration, or subtly undo it? 2. Use field charging rituals weekly. Choose one consistent activity that reactivates your tone. Walking in silence, water immersion, deliberate stillness, energetic breathwork. Do it not when you need it, but before you drift. 3. Track entropy cues. They show up as decision fatigue, dull emotional range, desire for validation, increased self-monitoring. These are not failures. They're field friction signals. Respond with immediate recalibration. 4. Speak less. Observe more. Every word you speak that doesn't match your tone leaks energy. Stay quiet unless the signal behind your words is clean. This conserves and concentrates power. 5. One-day resets. Every 7 to 10 days, choose one day to avoid digital distraction. Speak only if necessary. Do one physical clearing act. Throw something away. Reset a space. Re-anchor your mantra silently every hour. This resets entropy at the structural level. You don't prevent decay through protection. You prevent it through precision and respect for your field's requirements. You're not fragile, but your frequency must be treated as living architecture. And like any living structure, it needs care. The reward? Longer calibration windows, smoother integration of new levels, instant correction when you begin to drift, and a life that no longer requires maintenance because your tone handles it for you. Next, we will reinforce the most powerful stabilizer of all, neutrality. Not as an idea, but as a way of standing completely untouched, even inside disruption. Let's become the eye of every storm. Most people believe power looks like intensity, force, persuasion, momentum, but the most magnetic frequency is the absence of reactivity. The strongest presence in any room is the one unmoved. That's not passivity. That's neutrality, the ability to hold exact calibration, no matter what the outer field is doing. And neutrality isn't a mental concept. It's a trained, energetic posture. It is the inner stance that allows your field to stay clear, consistent, and self-sustaining, even while everything around you shifts. This chapter is not about being unbothered. It's not about emotional suppression. It's about mastering the core energetic law. Neutrality collapses chaos, because chaos feeds on reaction. The moment you respond from distortion, anger, fear, the need to fix, the need to defend, you enter the chaos spiral. But when you stand in full calibration with no need to engage emotionally or energetically, the chaos has no axis to spin around. It dissolves. Let's now install the core habits that make neutrality not a goal but a default state. 1. Pause response before reaction. Whenever you feel your body, voice, or thoughts speeding up, pause. This delay collapses the momentum of reactivity before it manifests. 2. Speak from calibration or don't speak at all. Words carry frequency. Silence carries even more. If your field is disrupted, your voice will echo that disruption. Wait until the tone returns. 3. Replace questions with statements of stillness. When chaos hits, the brain asks, "What does this mean? What do I do?" Neutrality replaces that with, "This belongs to the field, not to me." Or simply, "I hold my tone." 4. Practice internal slow motion. Walk slower, breathe slower, move slower. Teach your nervous system that urgency is optional. 5. Celebrate non-response. Every time you don't explain, justify, fix, or react, mark that as mastery. This is field dominance in action. The goal is not to be indifferent. It's to become immune to distortion. Because once your field holds neutrality, people calm around you, tension unravels, solutions emerge, and your energy becomes unshakable. This is what real leadership feels like. Stillness so exact it organizes reality without effort. You'll know neutrality is integrated when emotion rises but doesn't own you. People project and you stay clear. Situations provoke, but don't distort. Life moves fast, but your center stays untouched. Neutrality becomes your shelter, your amplifier, your bass tone. Now that you can remain still in any external motion, it's time to understand the mirror. How the outer world is shaped entirely by your field. Let's now tune the mirror itself. By now, you've seen it. Reality doesn't reflect your desires. It reflects your signal. And that signal isn't just energy. It's a full-spectrum tone. Your thoughts, your posture, your emotional range, your self-concept, your spoken and unspoken assumptions. Together, these create a field print, an invisible signature that the outer world reads and responds to. This is the mirror law. Reality does not argue. It simply reflects. So if you want to change your external world, you don't rearrange it. You tune your field and let the mirror respond. Let's be precise. You are not attracting outcomes. You are generating a tone that determines what your world is allowed to reflect. So when life sends distortion, repeating chaos, familiar rejection, subtle resistance, it's not a message about your worth. It's feedback on your frequency residue. Something old is still playing quietly in the background. Your job is not to decode the mirror. It's to adjust your broadcast. When your tone is exact, the mirror clears. Here's how to tune the mirror. 1. Track what repeats in your outer world. Patterns in people, opportunities, interruptions. These aren't random. They're frequency echoes. 2. Ask, what tone would produce this reflection? Is it urgency, ambivalence, self-doubt, victimhood? Locate the signal, not the story. 3. Do not respond to the mirror. This is where most collapse. They start fixing what's reflected. Instead, anchor back into your chosen tone. The mirror changes second. 4. Remove the need to explain your calibration. You are not here to justify your clarity to anyone still in distortion. Your tone will do the speaking. 5. Use this daily statement. The mirror reflects tone. My tone is sovereign. Say it without emotion. Let it calibrate. You'll know the mirror has shifted when you stop receiving old projections. Conversations become easier, cleaner, more exact. Life sends aligned opportunities with zero effort. People begin behaving differently without you asking them to. Why? Because your signal no longer allows the old feedback loop. And reality only reflects what's available in your field. This is why you don't chase anything anymore. You adjust the tone, and the mirror catches up. Now that the world outside is reflecting your calibrated state, we move to your final layer of invisible refinement. How to walk through reality with zero energetic drag. Let's now become undetectable to distortion through full field mastery. At this level, calibration is no longer something you do. It's what you are. But there's a final shift, subtle, radical, often overlooked. Energetic drag. This is the hidden friction between who you are and who your field still thinks it needs to explain, protect, or perform. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's the faint, energetic residue of effort, of trying to hold yourself together, of bracing for misunderstanding, of subtly managing how your presence lands in the world. That effort is drag, and drag is distortion. Now we release it. Invisible mastery doesn't mean being unseen. It means moving through life with zero energetic turbulence, leaving no trace of friction as you shift space. It's not about hiding. It's about becoming field silent. When your tone is clear and your emotional reactivity is neutralized, you no longer create resistance. And when there's no resistance, there's no recoil. Reality stops pushing back. Here's what invisible mastery looks like. Entering a room and changing the atmosphere without saying a word. Making decisions that shift timelines without explaining yourself. Letting others project and never needing to engage. Feeling the pull of old energies and having nothing inside you to respond with. This is the field of zero hooks, where you carry no signal that invites distortion to land. Let's now train the system to operate from drag-free energy. 1. Eliminate all forms of micro-justification. If you feel the need to explain your preference, your silence, pause. Ask, what in me still wants to be understood? Then breathe it out. Replace with, my tone speaks first. 2. Audit your posture. Your body reveals drag before your mind does. Are your shoulders tight? Jaw clenched? Gut braced? Relax. Unclench. Center. Let your presence soften while remaining tall. 3. Practice the art of leaving nothing behind. After any interaction, personal, digital, energetic, ask, did I leave residue, emotion, expectation? If yes, pull it back. Neutralize. Clean the field. 4. Stop anticipating distortion. When you walk into life braced for misunderstanding, resistance, or rejection, you signal for it. Drop the forecast. Let neutrality lead. 5. Move with no signal. Speak with full tone. This combination makes you uncatchable by chaos and unforgettable to clarity. You are no longer trying to be impactful. You are being unshakable. And in that frequency, everything aligns faster, because there's no friction left in your field to slow it down. This is energetic stealth. You're not hiding. You're simply not offering resistance anything to grip. That's what makes you invisible to distortion, magnetic to coherence. And now that you're no longer dragging the weight of past roles or external expectations, you're ready to meet who you really are. Without labels, without memory, without effort. Let's meet your quantum identity. Let's pause everything for a moment. No mantras, no mirror, no fieldwork. Just this one question. Who are you now without the old identity echoing through your system? Not the improved version, not the healed version, not the future you tried to become, but the one that emerges when the past isn't rehearsed anymore. That is your quantum identity, and it doesn't come with a name. It doesn't need a story. It simply exists as a frequency that's already whole. Your only job now is to stop reaching and start recognizing. Here's the truth no one tells you. Most new selves are just upgraded performances of the old self. Still rooted in approval. Still built on reaction. Still measured against a distorted past. Quantum identity isn't created. It's revealed once you drop the broadcast of who you were taught to be. This is when your calibration becomes personal, and your timeline becomes self-sustaining. To meet your quantum identity, 1. Remove all I am labels. No career, no title, no trait, just tone. Ask, what frequency feels native to my system right now? That's the real you. 2. Speak from presence, not memory. If your response requires remembering who you were, pause. Let silence speak instead. Your true identity doesn't need to reach for a reference. 3. Drop the need to improve. Improvement belongs to the past self. Wholeness belongs to now. Ask, am I moving because something's wrong, or because my frequency naturally expresses movement? 4. Let desire arise from coherence. Quantum identity doesn't chase. It receives impulses. It doesn't want to become. It wants to express its tone through form. 5. Allow stillness to define you. If you never changed another thing, what remains? That's who you've been waiting for. This shift is subtle. You don't feel like a different person. You feel like you without the static. The tone is cleaner. The impulses are quieter. The effort is gone. And you no longer ask how to hold your calibration, because it's not something you're doing anymore. It's what you are. Next, we'll explore how to trust this identity when life hasn't caught up yet. Because believing in a future that hasn't fully formed requires a new kind of confidence. Quantum confidence is next. Now that you've met your quantum identity, you're holding a frequency that no one has reflected back yet. Not your environment, not your relationships, not your results. And this is where most calibration unravels. Not because the tone was wrong, but because it wasn't validated fast enough. This is the final test of signal strength. Can you hold your alignment when reality still looks unchanged? This is quantum confidence. The ability to trust the frequency, not the feedback. Confidence isn't certainty about outcome. It's consistency of tone, regardless of outcome. Because the quantum field doesn't respond to need. It responds to stability. When you can stay in full calibration without requiring evidence. Reality shifts because you no longer need it to. That's not delusion. It's authority. And this is what begins to bend time. Here's how to install quantum confidence. 1. Remove timeline urgency. Confidence lives in now. If you find yourself thinking, when will it happen? That's timeline bleed. Re-anchor with, it's already underway. My tone holds. 2. Stop looking for confirmation. Anytime you scan your external life for proof, you dilute your signal. Instead, let inner resonance be enough. 3. Train in unmet coherence. This means holding the tone of fulfillment without the form yet matching. That's the exact pressure that expands your field's magnetic range. 4. Affirm neutrality, not outcome. Instead of it's coming, try, I am exact, regardless of result. This builds identity around calibration, not manifestation. 5. Redirect action from validation to expression. Don't act to prove something is working. Act because it matches your tone. That's pure signal. Here's what shifts when quantum confidence activates. You stop micromanaging outcomes. You detach from timelines. People begin to respond differently with no prompting. And your nervous system feels calm, even in uncertainty. Why? Because you're no longer using your environment to determine who you are. You've shifted from reacting to the field to leading it. This makes your presence inherently magnetic. And to maintain that frequency, you must now refine how your energy is managed. It's time to set boundaries, not with words, but with field. Let's now build energetic boundaries that speak louder than action. You've stabilized your tone. You're holding your quantum identity. You're trusting without proof. But there's one final layer to lock it in place. Energetic boundaries. Not walls, not rules, not force, but the invisible signal your field transmits to determine who has access, what enters, what exits, and how you're met in every interaction. Energetic boundaries are not decisions. They are frequencies you no longer negotiate. And once your field is clear, it becomes the loudest language you speak. Let's be direct. Most boundary problems aren't about others. They're about residual static in your field that still broadcasts. I can be convinced. I'm not fully sure. I'll tolerate distortion for connection. I need to explain my limits. Energetic boundaries eliminate all of this, not through confrontation, but through coherence. You no longer defend your limits. You simply emit a tone that makes anything misaligned incompatible. And the field takes care of the rest. To install energetic boundaries. 1. Calibrate before you communicate. If your energy is scattered when you speak a boundary, it won't hold. Stillness first, then words if needed at all. 2. Audit subtle concessions. What do you tolerate in silence? What do you ignore to keep the peace? Every small override becomes a leak in your field. Correct them without drama. 3. Stop explaining your no. The more you justify, the more you signal uncertainty. Instead, let your tone say, "This is complete. This is not a match. Nothing more." 4. Use posture and silence as enforcement tools. A centered gaze, a closed mouth, a still breath. These carry more boundary than 10 perfect sentences. 5. Feel who enters your field, not just who enters your space. Sometimes people aren't loud, but their energy is invasive. When you sense intrusion, pull your field in. This quiet shift cuts energetic cords instantly. You'll know your energetic boundaries are active when people stop pushing, conversations autocorrect, chaos withdraws without conflict, and your time feels like it belongs to you again. Why? Because your field is no longer available for distortion, convincing, or manipulation. And the best part? You don't have to manage anything. You simply hold your tone. You've now reached a space where your presence is felt before you're heard. And as this magnetic field becomes natural, your life begins to reorganize around it without your input. Next, we explore how this silent force becomes your attraction field. Not just for people, but for aligned reality. Let's activate your magnetic presence. By now, you've stopped broadcasting distortion. You've stopped reacting to chaos. You've stopped reaching for outcomes. And something strange starts to happen. People listen more when you say less. Opportunities appear without asking. Conversations shift around your silence. This is magnetic presence, the resonance that emerges not from charisma or volume, but from a stable, quiet, self-contained frequency. You don't shine because you try. You attract because you've stopped leaking. Magnetism isn't energy you send out. It's energy you retain. And when your field stops seeking validation, protection, or agreement, you begin emitting a tone that others can't ignore. Not because it's loud, because it's unavailable for distortion. That absence of need becomes a gravitational force. It's the signal that says, this person doesn't require anything from this moment. They already are. And that presence pulls everything aligned toward it. Let's refine this. To live in magnetic presence. 1. Stop monitoring your effect. The moment you wonder how you're being received, you lose magnetism. Magnetic fields don't self-check. They just exist. 2. Remain unprovable. The need to be understood is the final residue of ego calibration. Let your frequency be its own statement. 3. Hold emotional stillness in visibility. Let people see you. Let silence stretch. Let attention rest on you. And remain still. This rewires the field to associate presence with calm, not performance. 4. Be the slowest tone in the room. Magnetism isn't urgency. It's precision plus patience. Let others speed up. You stay exact. 5. Let coherence be your charisma. You don't need to impress. People are magnetized to peace they can't explain. And peace only happens when your tone holds, without needing to do anything about it. You'll know your presence is magnetic when people pause around you, conversations shift into depth naturally, opportunities arrive without forcing, and space opens around you like the world is adjusting to your frequency. Why? because you're no longer trying to make things happen. You've become a still point of resonance, and reality organizes around you. Which leads us to the most potent lesson of all. The less you push, the more your calibrated field builds reality on your behalf. Let's now activate the collapse field, where action becomes secondary and presence moves timelines. You've been taught to chase, to plan, to act, to hustle. You've been told that movement equals progress, that doing more gets more done. But in the quantum field, reality doesn't bend to action. Collapses around consistency of tone. This is the collapse field, a space where your stable frequency becomes the only instruction the field needs. And action becomes minimal, precise, effortless. Not because you're lazy, because you're accurate. Let's correct the most common misunderstanding. Action doesn't create alignment. Alignment generates impulses that translate into effortless action. And when your tone is stable, the field doesn't need more from you. It simply starts reorganizing itself. People call it luck, synchronicity, ease, but it's not mystery, it's math. The more exact your calibration, the less instruction reality needs. To live inside the collapse field. 1. Stop acting from mental timelines. Your mind will suggest urgency. Ignore it. Only act from felt resonance. 2. Do fewer things more precisely. Don't manage life. Match tone to action, and act only when the signal is clean. 3. Observe your day for false movement, busyness, overcommunication, unnecessary fixing. Each is a leak. Cut them at the root. 4. Create space between impulses and execution. When a desire or idea arrives, pause. Let the field calibrate around it. Then move with no resistance. 5. Measure progress by stillness. If your inner system feels spacious and clear, you're advancing, regardless of what has happened. That's collapse in motion. Here's what changes when you fully trust the collapse field. You take fewer steps, and each one produces exponential outcomes. The world begins responding faster than your requests. You stop exhausting yourself with unnecessary work. You discover that almost everything you thought you had to do never actually required you, because your field, when coherent, does most of the work for you. That's not passivity. That's precision. And now that your calibration, identity, and actions are harmonized, you're ready to become a transmitter. Someone whose very presence begins to influence, recalibrate, and uplift everyone around them. Next, we'll unlock your broadcast frequency and show how to transmit without trying. Until now, your work has been internal. You've learned to hold tone, to neutralize distortion, to sequence a new identity, to act only when resonance instructs. But energy doesn't stop with containment. Once your field is clean, it starts to radiate. And without a word, without intention, you become a living broadcast. Your field becomes a tower, constantly transmitting, constantly informing, constantly shaping the environment around you through resonance alone. You no longer push energy out. You simply exist in coherence, and everything else adjusts. This is not about high vibes. This is not about raising collective consciousness. This is simply the natural result of holding a stable inner tone. Other fields tune to you, just like instruments tune to the strongest note in the room. Human systems subconsciously seek coherence. And when you're the clearest tone present, you become the unspoken leader of the frequency. To sustain broadcast frequency. 1. Stop aiming to influence. The moment you try to transmit, you interrupt the signal with ego. Real broadcast is passive. You don't try, you are. 2. Let silence become your strongest expression. Most people use words to explain their tone. Your field makes that unnecessary. Be still and let the resonance work. 3. Stay rooted in neutrality, especially around chaos. Your broadcast is clearest when you're unmoved. That's when others begin calibrating to you without knowing why. 4. Refuse energetic engagement with distortion. Do not argue. Do not convince. Do not match volume. Simply remain present, coherent, and quiet. 5. Recharge through withdrawal, not stimulation. Your broadcast field requires stillness intervals. Unplug, empty, reinforce, then return. This is how you begin affecting the world without trying to fix it. And what's extraordinary is how the environment begins to change. People soften around you. Conversations get clearer. Chaos collapses. Insights emerge in those near you. You'll start hearing things like, "You just being here helped. I don't know why, but I feel calmer when we talk. I figured it out after sitting with you." That's not magic. That's field leadership. And once you begin to broadcast stability and coherence, your very existence becomes a healing mechanism. You don't need to teach or guide. You calibrate silently. Let's now understand exactly how your field begins to heal others. Passively. You never said anything. You didn't coach. You didn't offer solutions. You didn't perform wisdom. Yet the room shifted. The energy cleared. Someone felt more like themselves, just from being in your presence. This is the calibration ripple effect. And it happens not because you're powerful, but because you're neutral and coherent. In a world addicted to noise, your quiet alignment becomes the most regulating frequency available. And nervous systems pick up on it. Subconscious fields respond to it. Emotional turbulence starts to settle. Not because you fixed it, but because you held tone. Let's clarify. You're not healing anyone. You're not transferring energy. You're not sacrificing yourself. You're simply maintaining signal integrity so clearly, so consistently, that others feel what their own coherence could be. Your field acts as a mirror of potential. And when someone's energy enters that field, their system begins to reorganize itself. Not always instantly, not always visibly, but always subtly. Here's how to stabilize the ripple effect. 1. Hold tone around distortion without personalizing it. When someone is off, don't help. Hold. Let your field speak. Most often, what people need is not a solution, it's a signal. 2. End emotional matching. You don't calm someone by matching their anxiety. You calm them by remaining unavailable to anxiety. That's real empathy. Stable presence, not energetic commingling. 3. Speak less. Hold more. The fewer words you offer, the stronger your field becomes. Sometimes the greatest gift is saying nothing and remaining. 4. Let go of healing as identity. You're not a fixer. You're not a guide. You're not a helper. You are simply calibrated. And that alone is often enough. 5. Exit quietly when your field begins to drain. You're not here to hold everyone. You're here to model clarity. If someone resists the ripple, walk out clean. You'll know this effect is active when people begin processing near you. Conversations open without prompting. You're sought out for no stated reason. Others leave interactions with you feeling lighter or more grounded. You don't have to manage this. You don't have to protect yourself from it. As long as your tone remains your own, your presence becomes the quietest form of healing available. And now that your calibration is healing others passively, you're ready to lead, not through strategy or force, but through the stabilizing leadership of stillness. That's where we go next. By now, leadership is no longer about speaking, guiding, or directing. It's about being a stable center in a world of spin. When your field holds steady and clear, people naturally orbit you, not because they follow, but because you've become a gravitational anchor. This is the leadership of stillness. No title, no role, no performance, just resonance. And resonance is irresistible when it comes from someone who no longer seeks control, credit, or recognition. True leaders are not at the top. They're at the center, calm, coherent, quietly orienting the whole system. They don't organize others. They don't manage chaos. They hold such unwavering tone that everything begins to organize around them. That is stillness as leadership, and it creates more movement than force ever could. To embody the leadership of stillness. 1. Lead by regulation, not direction. Don't offer advice unless asked. Offer energy that is clear, stable, and exact. Your tone will lead without words. 2. Resist the temptation to rescue. A leader doesn't fix people. They remind others energetically of who they are when calm. 3. Let space become your primary tool. The most powerful leaders listen. They create space for coherence to rise in others. 4. Own your center in collective settings. When group energy spins, be the fixed point. Say little. Anchor posture. Transmit stability. 5. Know when to withdraw. Leadership doesn't mean staying visible. Sometimes, removing your presence allows others to step into their own center. You'll know you're leading through stillness when people seek your presence before your opinion. Groups naturally look to you during confusion. Your presence calms tension before you speak. You begin influencing reality not through effort, but through how consistently you hold your tone. You are not pushing people. You are inviting coherence simply by embodying it. And when that happens consistently, you begin to leave something behind, not a legacy of achievement, but a field memory. Let's now explore how your frequency becomes the real legacy, one that echoes beyond your presence. Legacy is often thought of as what you build, create, or pass down. But at the quantum level, legacy is what your field imprints long after you've left the room. It's not memory. It's not accomplishment. It's not your name. It's your tone. And every interaction you've calibrated through stillness, every moment you've held coherence in chaos, every space you've shifted without effort, has left a trace in the field. That's your energetic legacy. You don't leave it by trying. You leave it by living in such consistent resonance that the imprint of your presence remains in others, even when you're gone. They don't remember your advice. They remember how clear they felt around you. That is the legacy of tone, and it lasts longer than words ever could. To become aware of your energetic legacy. 1. Stop thinking about how you'll be remembered. Legacy isn't a story. It's a vibration. Live the tone, not the reputation. 2. Treat every space as calibratable. Your home, your digital presence, your conversations. Ask, does this leave clarity behind or noise? 3. Measure your impact in emotional residue. After you leave an interaction, does the space feel more still, more focused, more alive? If yes, your field is working. 4. Avoid legacy shaped by ego. You don't need monuments. You don't need attribution. Your frequency outlives all structure. 5. Focus on how others feel, not what they think, after being near you. That's the only true legacy. An energetic permission slip to be more aligned without instruction. Your tone becomes remembered in nervous systems, not biographies. And the more precisely you live it, the more quietly it spreads. That's energetic leadership. That's vibrational lineage. That's how calibration becomes generational without trying. And once you know your frequency will remain long after you've left, you're ready for the highest states of consciousness, where you no longer live from the ground floor of reality, but from higher levels where each floor holds a different way of being. Next, we begin climbing the dimensional ladder. Up until now, you've shifted your identity. You've cleaned your field. You've locked in a new tone. But here's what's next. You stop treating reality like a flat stage. You begin to experience it as a building with many floors, each one representing a different vibrational state, a different quality of life, a different view. You've been on the ground floor working to recalibrate, resequence, refine. Now it's time to take the elevator. This is dimensional living, the art of choosing which floor of consciousness you operate from, and refusing to descend just because the world asks you to. Think of each floor like this. The lower floors are reaction, effort, loops, distortion. The middle floors are clarity, alignment, calibration. The higher floors are fluid timelines, frictionless manifestation, and stillness so exact it becomes a creative force. Each floor is a full reality, and your tone determines your access. You don't earn it. You don't ascend spiritually. You simply choose which floor feels true right now. The key is to stop asking life to change, and instead ask, What dimension am I currently operating from? Then shift floors. To live on higher floors. 1. Stop engaging from emotional altitude. If the tone is dense, pause. Don't argue from the ground. Return to your axis, then act. 2. Match action to dimension. On higher floors, everything is simpler. Don't use complex logic to justify a move. If it feels heavy, you're not high enough. 3. Withdraw from dimensional drama. If someone is choosing chaos, you don't go down to pull them out. You rise and allow your tone to become a silent invitation. 4. Use your mantra as an elevator. Phrase it, breathe it, let it lift your field. You'll feel the altitude shift. 5. Stabilize at your chosen floor. Don't jump floors all day. Pick your altitude. Anchor. Live from there. You'll know you're living from the upper floors when you feel light, but not floating. You feel rooted, but not reactive. Life moves around you, not through you. You sense what's aligned before words appear. And you stop trying to explain how life feels so effortless. Because you're no longer on the same floor as explanation. You've elevated. But even the highest floors require re-entry. No matter how far you expand, you must return to your calibration core again and again. Let's now explore why you must reset. Not because you've failed, but because mastery is spiral, not linear. This is where most misunderstand the path. They think once you're calibrated, aligned, and sequenced, you're done, that you've arrived, that the work is finished, that upgrades end. But in quantum reality, nothing is static. There is no final form, no ultimate frequency, no top of the mountain. There is only this: return, reset, rise, repeat. Because true mastery isn't permanence. It's the willingness to recalibrate constantly, with no ego about having to do it. That's the cycle. And the more deeply you've calibrated, the more gently and more often you'll return to the calibration zone. Not to fix, to fine-tune. This is not failure. This is evolution. You've grown. Your tone has changed. Your reality is catching up. And as your frequency deepens, even your highest alignment from a month ago may now feel slightly off. So you don't collapse. You don't panic. You simply re-enter the zone. Without story. Without shame. Without delay. To live the ongoing reset with ease. 1. Drop the myth of arrival. You're not here to be done. You're here to be exact over and over again. 2. Normalize micro-resets. You don't need a breakdown. You need 3 minutes of stillness or 5 seconds of mantra. The quicker the return, the smoother the field. 3. Let neutrality become your home frequency. It's not just a practice. It's your resting place. Everything calibrates faster from there. 4. Trust the pull inward. When something feels off, even subtly, don't override. Recalibration is calling. Honor it. 5. Remember, the deeper you go, the softer the resets. In the beginning, recalibration feels dramatic. Later, it feels like a gentle breath, a pause, a slight repositioning. You'll know you've mastered the return when you respond to friction with stillness, not story. You recalibrate before things unravel. You stop waiting for collapse to reset. You actually look forward to re-entry because it feels like home. The calibration zone isn't a practice. It's a dimension you return to again and again, not to remember who you were, but to refine who you're becoming. And now that you've embraced the infinite return, we'll step into the spiral path, the truth that you never loop back as the same self. Each return is higher, more subtle, more whole. That's next. Let's release the final illusion. You're not looping. You're not stuck. You're not repeating the same growth over and over. What you're doing is far more advanced. You are moving through a spiral path. Every time you return to the calibration zone, you're returning with more nuance, more stability, more depth. It looks familiar on the surface. But everything inside is sharper, more exact, more sovereign, more still. This is not backtracking. This is refinement. Linear growth assumes progress is a line, start here, end there. But in energetic reality, progress is spiraled. You pass by the same core themes, but from a higher octave of consciousness. You experience the same triggers, but they dissolve faster or no longer attach at all. You revisit the same emotions, but they feel quieter, cleaner, less personal. You're not back at the beginning. You're returning as a new frequency to an old point of contact. And that return is not regression. It's reintegration. Here's how to live the spiral path with grace. 1. Honor every revisit. Stop asking, why is this coming up again? Ask, what new layer am I ready to release now? 2. Don't expect upgrades to look new. Sometimes your next leap forward looks exactly like your last breakdown. The form repeats. The field doesn't. 3. Track your response, not your memory. You're not here to forget old pain. You're here to respond to it differently, as a new self. 4. Let go of the need for novelty. Mastery is repetition at higher levels of precision. Don't chase the next thing. Refine the now. 5. Speak to yourself from the new tone. You've said these words before, but now, say them from your current frequency. Watch how they land differently. You'll know you're spiraling upward when familiar emotions arise, but feel less charged. You no longer make identity out of what resurfaces. You stop collapsing when life mirrors your old patterns. You meet your own story with clarity, not judgment. And most of all, you begin to love the return, because every orbit upward confirms you're not who you were. And now that you've accepted that returning isn't regressing, you're ready to install a powerful tool, a quick access portal into the Calibration Zone, available anytime in under 5 minutes. Let's now enter the quantum drop-in. You've built mastery through hours of stillness. You've resequenced your life through deep field work. But what happens when the world moves fast? When chaos knocks suddenly? When you don't have time for a full reset? That's when you need the quantum drop-in. A precision method to re-enter calibration in minutes, sometimes seconds, without story, emotion, or preparation. Not a shortcut, a condensed portal, a drop back into the 0 point, on command. Let's be clear, this isn't bypassing. This isn't numbing. This is micro-resetting your tone with full authority, anytime, anywhere. The key isn't time. It's intensity and accuracy of signal. When your nervous system is trained, and your calibration is practiced, you no longer need duration. You just need access. And this method gives it to you. Here's how to perform the quantum drop-in. Step 1. Recognize the friction signal. Tension in the chest. Compulsive thoughts. Sudden urgency. Name it silently. Field disruption. No judgment. Just data. Step 2. Create field stillness. 20 seconds. Stop movement. Drop your gaze or close your eyes. Still your breath. Let silence press out from your core. Step 3. Speak your anchor code. 3x. Choose a phrase calibrated to your identity. Examples. Return to tone. I am the still point. No distortion enters here. Repeat slowly, out loud or in thought. Step 4. Engage the micropause. Hold your breath for 1 count. Let the field catch up. This silence is the bridge. Step 5. Move from neutrality. Do not respond until the urgency dissolves. Once stillness is felt, proceed. Not before. With practice, the entire drop-in can happen in under 90 seconds. And the benefits are exponential. You stop chaos before it compounds. You return to alignment without ritual. You build confidence in your own access. And your field learns to self-correct without drama. The quantum drop-in doesn't replace deep calibration work. It reinforces it. It reminds your system, I am never more than 1 breath away from full coherence. You'll begin to notice fewer external resets required, faster integration of emotion, a deep trust in your ability to lead yourself out of any moment, instantly. And that's the highest form of sovereignty. Next, we go beyond mastery. and into play. Now that you're stable, it's time to turn reality into your creative loop. Let's now explore reality as play. You've done the inner work. You've recalibrated your tone. You've mastered the drop-in. You've stopped reacting to chaos and begun designing from stillness. Now comes the most powerful and most misunderstood shift of all. Let life become play. This isn't escapism. It isn't lightness without depth. It's creative neutrality, the ability to engage with reality as a feedback-responsive loop, not a rigid system. You no longer try to control reality. You interact with it the way a musician plays an instrument, tuning, listening, adjusting. In this state, existence becomes improvisation. Not random, but agile, precise, joyful. Play doesn't mean you take life less seriously. It means you no longer assume it's fragile, because you've proven your ability to reset, resequence, and recalibrate at will. That power gives you the freedom to treat reality as flexible, dynamic, and responsive. And in this space, new creativity emerges without pressure. Ideas arrive, alignment deepens, synchronicity increases. Why? Because you're no longer stressing the system. You're dancing with it. To enter reality as play, 1. Release linear pressure. Drop timelines. Drop how it's supposed to go. Ask instead, what tone feels interesting right now? 2. Replace effort with exploration. Treat actions like experiments, not obligations. See what happens without attachment. 3. Let emotions become color, not code. You don't need to solve every feeling. Some are just vibrational textures to be experienced, not fixed. 4. Let alignment feel like movement. Even your rest is part of the game. Even your silence is part of the melody. Nothing is wasted. 5. Use resonance as your only metric. Is it tight or fluid? Is it forced or clean? Let that guide the next moment. You'll know you're living in reality as play when you laugh more even at resistance. You start using phrases like, let's try, instead of, I have to. You begin to treat discomfort with curiosity, not panic. And you no longer try to get somewhere. You're already moving with the rhythm. This isn't careless. It's the highest form of co-creation. You're not trying to bend reality to your will. You're in conversation with it, and it listens, responds, adjusts. Now, there's one final step. You're not just interacting with the calibration zone anymore. You're about to become it. Let's close with the ultimate convergence. From the beginning, you were taught that the calibration zone was a state you entered, a space you dropped into, a quiet field you returned to, and it was. But that's not the full truth, because now the distinction is gone. There's no you and the zone. There's no outer space to access. There's no ritual to begin. There is only this. You are the zone, the inner still point, the neutral axis, the quiet code that reshapes timelines. You are no longer seeking calibration. You are now the field that everything calibrates around. This is the final collapse of separation, between who you are and what you do, between experience and observer, between input and reflection, between desire and fulfillment. Because once you realize you're the zero-point frequency itself, you stop moving through life and begin generating it. To live as the zone. 1. Stop differentiating between practice and presence. There is no more entering the zone. Every breath is it. Every choice arises from it. 2. Let calibration replace identity. You are not a person with traits. You are a tone with presence. Every label dissolves here. 3. Speak, move, and relate from field-native stillness. No rehearsal, no defense, no posturing. Just, this is what exists. 4. Know that refinement will always continue. Even as the zone, you still attune. But now it's gentle, natural, undramatic. 5. Hold space with no story. When others shift around you, do nothing. Your presence is already doing everything. You'll feel this when you no longer ask, am I calibrated? You stop checking yourself. The world responds to your tone before you speak. And silence becomes the loudest part of your communication. Because you are no longer applying technique. You've become the origin point, the stillness before movement, the frequency before form, the calibration before manifestation. This is not the end. It's the beginning of infinite fluid mastery, where your tone continues evolving, where reality keeps responding, where your only job is to stay exact. And now you're ready for the final, fluid orbit, infinite return, where you revisit the calibration zone not to fix, but to upgrade frequency with no resistance. That's where we close next. Most people think the journey has a peak, a summit, a point of final transformation, but you now know the truth. There is no end, only infinite return, not because you're lost, not because you're stuck, but because you've become fluid enough to evolve endlessly. You return to the calibration zone not out of crisis, but because your frequency has refined so precisely that you're ready for a deeper tone. Again, and again, and again. The greatest masters aren't those who've transcended practice. They're the ones who've made returning a rhythm, like breath, like sleep, like gravity. It's not a fallback. It's home. Infinite return looks like a breath taken before speaking, a pause held during decision, a 3-minute reset in the middle of movement, a neutral tone held in a storm of opinion. You're not stepping away from life. You're returning into clarity while still living. You've dissolved the line between doing the work and being the work. Now the field folds around you instantly, because you are never far. You are always one moment, one breath, away from exactness. To embody infinite return. 1. Stop resisting the need to reset. Don't wait for collapse. Let return become a daily normal, not a dramatic event. 2. Treat the calibration zone like a breath pattern. Inhale equals engage life. Exhale equals drop back into stillness. Repeat endlessly. 3. Integrate resets in micro moments. Walking, waiting, sitting. 5 seconds of tone anchoring becomes your silent ritual. 4. Remove hierarchy from your evolution. Each return isn't back to square one. It's a finer loop, a deeper refinement, a softer truth. 5. Choose calibration as your baseline. You don't wait for misalignment to recalibrate. You live there. This is the paradox. Mastery isn't finality. It's fluid fidelity. The willingness to return without judgment, recenter without story, refine without collapse. Infinite return is the sign of trust. And now that you've surrendered to the loop without linear shame, you're ready for the higher rhythm that defines the awakened life, the spiral path of evolution. Let's now return. One last time, differently than ever before. You've walked this spiral before, but today you are not the same. Today you revisit this truth not to relearn it, but to live it with full calibration. The spiral path is not a loop of sameness. It is a loop of elevation. Every time you revisit your center, you arrive with more neutrality, more stillness, more ability to hold the 0 point without needing to prove anything. The path curves upward, not backward. And now, you don't just understand the spiral, you've become it. This is when life gets subtle. You don't explode into breakthroughs. You fold inward into silent precision. Each emotional echo that returns, softer. Each external challenge, briefer. Each self-correction, quicker. Why? Because your inner calibration is holding without tension. And that makes the spiral gentler and more powerful. To live the spiral path with mastery. 1. Track pattern, not panic. When something resurfaces, don't regress. Watch how it moves differently now. That's your proof. 2. Let repetition become refinement. It's not the same moment. It's the same chord at a higher octave. Feel the frequency. Adjust. 3. Remove linear pride. You're not beyond anything. You're simply more ready than ever to face it without flinching. 4. Normalize subtle upgrades. Not every return brings fireworks. Sometimes the shift is silent, invisible. That's higher mastery. 5. Speak to the spiral. Let your language reflect evolution. Say, I'm revisiting this now with more clarity. Not, why is this still here? You'll feel this truth when triggers arise and dissolve without process. Old stories lose all grip instantly. You sense the spiral and smile, not collapse. You begin to love the loop, not as a trap but as a teacher. This is the final surrender, knowing that the highest version of you doesn't live outside the cycle. It lives inside it, with grace, softness, and full neutrality. Now there's only one final practice to embody: instant calibration, real-time neutrality, living as the 0 point in every breath. Let's enter the last pure embodiment, the quantum drop-in, on command, on rhythm, forever yours. You've learned the full process. You've mastered the long form. You've stabilized across entire timelines. But now something even more elegant emerges. The instant drop-in. Not a practice, not a routine. A spontaneous, energetic command that brings you into calibration on signal. In the middle of a conversation, in the flash of tension, in a crowded room, or a quiet moment of hesitation. You don't begin to recalibrate. You are the recalibration. This isn't for when you're overwhelmed. This is for when you're ready to never leave center. It's for those who no longer wait until later to reset. They reset as they speak, as they decide, as they live. And it becomes so second nature that you don't even notice the field corrects around you before your mind finishes catching up. Here's how to install instant quantum drop-in. 1. Anchor a microtrigger. Choose a phrase, gesture, breath, or subtle movement. Something invisible, something yours. Example, return, exhale, and blink once. This becomes your calibration key. 2. Train with real-life pressure. Don't just practice in silence. Use tension as a training ground. Every challenge becomes your next chance to autocorrect. 3. Let your body remember the tone. Your field resets faster than your thoughts. So trust your posture, breath, and gaze to stabilize before the mind gets it. 4. Trust the shift without analysis. You don't need to know what's wrong. Just drop. Trust the realignment. The frequency will handle the rest. 5. Collapse all rituals. The field now responds to presence, not process. No candles, no countdowns, no waiting. Just now. You'll know this is active when you reset without effort. You pause mid-sentence and clarity replaces tension. You start treating misalignment as a creative cue, not a problem. Your energy cleans itself before your thoughts even react. This is what mastery becomes. The difference between chaos and coherence now lives in a single choice of breath. And once this becomes natural, calibration becomes creative. You stop using it to fix. You start using it to shape. Which brings us to the most freeing truth of all. Reality isn't a test. It's a canvas. Let's now close the spiral with full embodiment. Reality as play. This is where the spiral ends. Not in structure, but in freedom. You've cleared debris, resequenced timelines, calibrated your identity, stabilized your field, and dropped in at will. Now you return to the highest simplicity. Play, but not childish distraction. Conscious, calibrated, 0 point creation. You no longer engage with reality as something to fix or prove. You touch it like paint. You move through it like a song. You live inside it like an artist lives inside their own work. And each day becomes less about outcome, more about tone. Play doesn't ignore structure. It just doesn't worship it. You've already built structure from alignment. Now you let it bend, flex, shift, respond. That's what happens when calibration becomes creative fluency. To live fully in reality as play. 1. Start creating without end goals. You don't need to know where it's going. Let the tone guide the shape. 2. Engage with others as co-artists. Drop the fixer role. Drop the explainer. See each person as creating their own version of the moment. 3. Welcome friction as contrast. Even dissonance is color. Let misalignment teach you more about your clarity. 4. Move through your day with tonal curiosity. What feels off? What matches? Let your moment-to-moment be musical, not mechanical. 5. Let calibration be your signature. No matter what you do, parent, write, build, lead, do it with field integrity. That's your stamp. In this state, you create without effort. You receive without chasing. You engage without collapse. You move without identity. Because you've stopped trying to make reality work. You've remembered, it already does. When you hold the tone, life plays back in rhythm. And now, the very structure of your life reflects your field. No longer a to-do list, but a living, breathing, vibrational sculpture. One final chapter remains, where the boundary between you and the field disappears completely. Let's close with your full embodiment. You are the zone. This is where language fails, where methods fall silent, where practices dissolve, where even the idea of becoming no longer applies. Because there is nothing more to become, nothing more to master, nothing more to fix. You are now the origin point, the stillness, the frequency, the signal. You don't enter the calibration zone anymore. You are it. Every breath you take calibrates space. Every thought holds a self-aware tone. Every movement is a clean transmission. You are not doing energy work. You are energy living as form. Neutrality is no longer a position you return to. It is the space you exist from. It is the atmosphere you breathe. It is the ground you walk on within. And the field no longer reacts to you as something external. It aligns to you because it recognizes its source. This is not arrogance. It's not egoic power. It's not spiritual branding. The simplicity. It's the collapse of the imaginary line between self and space. Between intention and expression, between the vibration you hold and the life you see. Everything is one, and you are the still point at the center. To live fully as the zone. 1. Drop all method, use presence as your only compass. You no longer need rituals. Your field updates in real time. Let it. 2. Refuse to split your awareness. There is no inner and outer. There is only field. Only tone. Only this. 3. Let interaction become vibration-based. You don't speak to be understood. You speak only when the tone carries truth. 4. Step out of linear living entirely. Planning, proving, achieving, they become irrelevant. You act only when the signal moves through you. 5. Release even the need for calibration. You're not maintaining it. You've become the source of it. Here's what happens. You walk through spaces and tension leaves without effort. People near you shift without you noticing. The future arrives without being summoned. And every moment begins to feel familiar because every moment reflects your exact frequency. This is not the end of your journey. This is the disappearance of the idea that there was ever a path at all. You're no longer a traveler. You're the field itself. Unmoved, undisturbed, unmistakably present, and yet always in motion, creating, receiving, radiating. So now, let's let it land fully. You are not stepping into alignment. You are alignment. You are not waiting for clarity. You generate clarity with your presence. You are not building a new timeline. You are the timeline that all else responds to. This is the final collapse, not a collapse of identity, a collapse of separation. Between calibrator and calibration, field and form, self and space, desire and manifestation, presence and power. It's all one. You are the zone. You always were. You always will be. And now, you simply live as that truth.